Mr. Speaker.
You may all be seated. It's not just us alone here as presiding officers. It's quite a very good attendance. And I know, Honorable Premier, you've been here consistently, and I saw some familiar faces that have been with us here. I missed you all, so thank you very much for your being present here. And Honorable Said, I know you are a regular here, so I see you've taken a seat of the leader of the opposition today. Welcome, honorable members who are connected virtually, distinguished guests, and our head of departments. You are all welcome, and of course, the people of the Western Cape. I will ask the Secretary to read the fifth order.
Debate on Vote 5, Education, Western Cape Appropriation Bill B4 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this stage, I would like to request the Minister of Education, Honorable Schaefer, to address the House.
Thank you, Speaker, Premier, Cabinet colleagues and members, and of course to my EXCO who are here in person and in virtual reality. Speaker, in every budget speech, I mentioned that I wish there were better news to share about our dire financial situation. And unfortunately, in every budget speech, I have to be upfront about the fact that there isn't, and to present an honest and accurate account of what we can and cannot do as a government and as a provincial education department. The challenge we are facing is as simple and as complex as this. With sustained increases in our learner numbers, our needs are not being met with the required increase in budget. This is something we have warned about for years now, yet people still jump up and down and act surprised when we have learners that are not placed. This year, once again, we have 19,000 more learners in our schools than we did in 2020. This is the annual average increase for the last 5 years, meaning we have another nearly 100,000 learners in our system than we did 5 years ago. Our ongoing emphasis on retention of learners in the system adds to the problem. Retention is not just desirable, as Member Dugmore recently put it, casually implying that it is a nice to have, that is not essential. Education is a vital determinant of our learners' future well-being, and completing basic schooling significantly improves their future prospects. But there is a flip side. When more learners remain in school up to their matric year, we have fewer places opening up for new and relocating learners to join our schools. Our greatest success poses one of our greatest challenges. Where do we put the tens of thousands of learners moving to the Western Cape each year? Every year I have to explain to political opportunists that we are not failing to plan, that we can predict as much as we like, but if we do not have the money to implement those plans, we simply cannot implement them. Whilst there's been some progress in amending the equitable share formula to take into account the increase in numbers, the fiscal realities of our country render them meaningless. And the cumulative effect of the years when we didn't receive the money for the learners in our system, combined with the current crisis, is why we are sitting with the difficulties we are facing. So we have to keep providing more with less. Last year, we lost a third of our infrastructure budget to COVID-19 and national grants, 1/3 of our infrastructure budget. A prudent national government would have had reserves to deal with such emergencies. Because they didn't, the money to keep our teachers and learners safe had to come from our funds that are already inadequate as it is. But there's always money for the litany of failing SOEs, Before that, we had the drought, for which we had to reallocate 300 million rand, also from infrastructure, as there was nowhere else for it to come from. And of course, the above inflation salary increases for staff, decided by national government and driven by their alliance partners, has created a budget shortfall of over 2.2 billion rand over the past 5 years in education in the Western Cape. So national government negotiates what we cannot afford, we have to pay it, and they don't refund us. And then we are accused of blaming national government when we cannot deliver as we need to and as we had planned. Yes, we do blame national government because they are to blame, in large part. And we should not have to keep on explaining why we do not have sufficient resources when just about everything national government touches is a complete disaster. It is also noteworthy that in 2008, the very person who now says that we blame and complain said the following: our province alone needs over 5 billion rand to make up its infrastructure backlog. If current funding patterns continue, it will take us 30 years to eradicate the backlog. This was Honourable Cameron Dugmore when he was Provincial Minister of Education. So it seems that the ANC has been acutely aware of the persistent underfunding of our province's education department by the National Treasury for over a decade, and yet has done absolutely nothing about it. Will they now? The emotional and physical toll that the pressure of placing learners where there is simply no space is immense, and I applaud the work our districts are doing in this regard. Learners who are enrolled late will also be supported through catch-up programs. I must comment here on the criticism made against me by members of this House last week regarding my department's returning funds to the Provincial Treasury. As the opposition members know, I am not the accounting officer, it wasn't my decision, but it is a fair question to ask when we are repeatedly claiming underfunding. As part of the adjustment budget process, we had the choice of either returning the funds to Provincial Treasury if they would not be spent by the financial year end, or report on under expenditure and lose the money. With a monthly salary budget of over R1 billion, it is always a tight balancing act to avoid over and under expenditure. And whilst 350 million rand is a lot of money, it constitutes about 1.5% of our budget. Delays in filling posts can easily amount to this kind of under expenditure. If we were to overspend by that amount, which is just as easy, we would be vilified for that as well. These funds were allocated to the compensation of employees, but were not spent during the year in large part because of COVID-19 limitations and lags in the appointment of staff. These funds could not be spent on other priorities in our department because of a decision of this government several years ago not to allow cost of employment funds to be spent on other priorities in a budget vote. We have explained this matter to the members before, so it is unfortunate that our engagements with the Standing Committee seem to so readily slip from certain members' minds, whilst others who are not even part of the committee have much to say on the topic when politically expedient. It is within the context of these perpetual challenges that I present our budget for this financial year. Our baseline allocation is 24.5 billion rand. This is a big number, but with 1.1 million learners in our system, we have big needs. Unfortunately, this budget represents a reduction note of 7.5% in our baseline allocation for 2021-22, 8.4% for 22-23, and 8% in 23-24. Please note now, on record, more decreases in budget with more increases in learners will result in more difficulties placing learners and more overcrowded classrooms. Despite the very difficult environment we are working in, all credit must go to our staff, led by SG Brown-Schroeder, who continue to seek innovative ways to deal with the issues we face and stretch every rand we get as far as possible. We are taking bold steps to address the shortage of space in our schools. Now that we have data from the annual SNAP survey to indicate the exact areas of growth and demand, our head of department has last week approved 342 additional teaching posts in areas where the demand for places is growing quickly. This is in addition to the 429 posts added in 2020. In addition to the extra staffing provisions, we have 7 new and replacement schools due to be completed by the end of the year. Turford Primary, Kwafaku Primary, PC Peterson Primary, Sunray Primary, Willows Primary, Panorama Primary number 2, and Perryvale Primary, which unfortunately is currently under threat of running late because of community interference. 6 extra classrooms at Saldanha Law School and 8 extra classrooms at Tilbach High School are also scheduled to be completed this year. I'm especially pleased to announce the actions we are taking to resolve the placement situation in Klapmuts. The rapid residential expansion of the town has created a significant demand for places for learners to be taught in Xhosa. Learners are presently being transported to Paarl, Kraaifontein, and Kayamandi, but this is not a sustainable solution. For the past year, we have been engaging with the community to find appropriate land for school construction, as well as temporary solutions for placement while construction takes place. We have now secured the necessary land and will begin planning for 2 schools, 1 primary and 1 high in the town. The first, a mobile primary school, is expected to be up and running by next year. The planning has also now commenced to provide a permanent high school that is expected to come into operation in 2025. The high school will incorporate clean energy, green technologies, and alternative construction material. It's also important not to draw a parallel between the situation in Klapmuts and that of the illegal so-called school operating in Forest Village. The latter is a case of a group of people trying to strong-arm the WCED into hiring select individuals by using children as pawns. The WCED had originally offered various options for the placement of these children at schools in the area at the end of last year. Every offer was denied because this group demanded that we use their so-called existing teachers and create a new school on the premises of another as a condition of acceptance. We cannot simply appoint teachers or create new schools in such a manner. We have to consider a variety of factors, including the fact that other areas have more serious challenges with regards to admissions and should be prioritized, never mind selection and recruitment processes. I urge the members of this House that have sought to further exploit these children by claiming that they could not find any place in any of our schools to instead show some leadership by encouraging the parents of these children to work with the department to accept suitable placement. We are further safeguarding our infrastructure spending over the MTEF by earmarking our entire infrastructure budget. New high schools are planned for Salaris Pass, Hout Bay, and Mfuleni in the Cape Town Metro, along with Mariatsburg in the West Coast District and Hermanus in the Overberg District. In line with our province's economic needs and our strategic priority of expanding access to STEAMAC subjects, we plan to complete at last an aeronautical sciences school in the Cape Winelands in the coming financial year, and are currently planning an agricultural school in the same district. We further plan to open a school of skills in Manenberg to ensure that learners in that area are able to access more inclusive learning opportunities, scheduled for completion in the 2023-24 financial year. We also need to make sure that our existing schools are maintained through a program of maintenance and replacement where necessary. This is contributing greatly to our shortage of funds for new schools. We inherited a portfolio of old and deteriorating infrastructure, which unfortunately the ANC administration had done almost nothing to address. While they replaced just 3 schools in 5 years, we have planned 13 for completion over this MTEF alone. In fact, since the DA was elected, we have constructed twice the number of schools on average each year than the previous ANC administration did. And we have done so in extremely difficult financial circumstances. Just as the department is struggling financially, so too are our schools. While both no-fee and fee-charging schools are affected by cuts to departmental budgets, fee-charging schools have faced the additional burden of parents being unable to pay school fees owing to the pandemic. Fee-charging schools need this income to pay SGB-appointed staff and cover daily expenses. I do welcome the emergency funding provided by the national government to schools to assist them with paying their SGB-appointed staff. But unfortunately, this was a short-term stopgap measure. Our schools are finding it harder and harder to make ends meet. We have made sure not to apply any budget cuts to critical support to schools, including norms and standards funding, LTSM, and learner transport allocations. We have also been innovative in finding ways to help schools cut their expenses, particularly in terms of utility bills, which are a huge burden on our schools. I've reported previously on the smart water meter project with Brigio and the University of Stellenbosch, which has yielded very good results and saved both water and money. During the last year, we have made subsidies available to schools to fund the installation and monthly costs of comprehensive water usage monitoring systems. This subsidy is, to my knowledge, the only one of its kind in South Africa, and adds to our previous work done in response to the threat of day zero, which included the installation of rainwater storage tanks at our schools. In accordance with our commitment to environmental sustainability, and once again with the support of Stellenbosch University and other partners, fluorescent lights at 25 low-income schools are being replaced with LED lights, offering better quality illumination at a lower cost. These schools have seen their annual electricity costs decrease by up to 37,000 rand. We have also approved 14 solar panel projects to date at our schools, in line with our government's commitment to lessen dependence on Eskom in this province. Again, another bright light in the Western Cape that assists our schools in using less electricity, paying lower prices, and freeing them from Eskom's unreliable electricity supply. A win-win all round, except perhaps for Eskom, but we can't wait another 13 years for them. Once again, we have endured losses as a result of burglary and vandalism at our schools. Over the December-January school holidays, 59 incidents were reported, including 4 major incidents with significant costs that our schools and department must now cover. This wanton destruction of property needs to stop. Apart from the fact that it makes no sense, it places us under even more financial pressure. We are continuing, Honourable Side, with our commitment to build city high security fences in schools each year, including in our hotspots. As part of the Western Cape Recovery Plan, 20 fences scheduled for delivery by the end of the 2021-22 financial year have been fast-tracked for delivery by July this year instead. An amount of 30 million rand has been allocated for fencing in this financial year. It is crucial that we continue to implement the COVID-19 safety protocols, which do require some of our schools to continue with rotational timetabling. We have thus made provision of 71 million rand for schools for the printing of take-home lessons and activities for learners in 2021, an increase from the 50 million spent last year. Sorry. Our many years of previous work in e-learning and ICT in schools has put us in an excellent position to make sure we use every possible resource to the fullest. I call our e-portal a national treasure, with good reason. The way in which the e-learning and curriculum directorates got stuck in to innovate during last year's school closures is phenomenal. I've previously spoken about the increase in the number of resources and the usage of resources on the portal. When I shared the work at an e-learning seminar last year, one of the first questions asked was whether anyone from outside the province could access our resources. And we do indeed share it with learners and teachers from all provinces. Over 20% of the users are currently from Gauteng, with a further 7% from KwaZulu-Natal and 2% from the Eastern Cape. We are pleased that the unique value of this resource is recognized by people from across the country. And again, very well done to our team. 85% of our schools are already connected with broadband. This provides us with a bigger range of options in delivering education, and the rest need to be connected as soon as possible. This year, an amount of 145.5 million rand has been allocated to expand local area networks at our schools. We are leading in classroom-to-classroom streaming, which began as a project with 12 schools and has now expanded to 58 schools. Streaming from classroom to classroom and alternate venues across all 8 districts. In addition, a pilot with 16 master teachers, 2 in each district, streaming lessons to 2 schools each, will begin this year following 2 years of planning. This year, the Eden and Central Karoo districts will create a broadcasting studio at the district office from which lessons by master teachers can be broadcast. Virtual curriculum support can be provided to teachers, lessons can be professionally recorded to serve as review resources for learners, and staff can connect seamlessly with teachers, parents, and learners through live conferencing. This is a very exciting initiative, and I'm looking forward to visiting them as soon as it is up and running. Our technology, while it also has limitations, has proved particularly useful as we deal with the implications of COVID-related physical distancing requirements. Our mediation of revised annual teaching plans for grades 1 to 9 for term 1 of 2021, for example, took place online with 29,000 teachers connected remotely to the sessions over 3 days. This just shows the naysayers who thought that we should not be spending money on ICT, how wrong they were. In accordance with our commitment to providing our learners with the best education possible, which includes 21st century skills, also in an effort to try and address the increasing number of learners who cannot be accommodated in schools, we have some exciting projects that have started or are about to start in the province. Over the last year, working in conjunction with the Ibodi Trust, we have piloted a virtual classroom setup at Beacon Hill High School in Mitchell's Plain, where all learning and tasks take place online. A classroom has been converted into a digital lab with the help of the Valencia Institute, where learners have access to the necessary equipment and internet access to participate. 27 grade 9 learners participated in an intensive 3-month intervention to address gaps in their learning using online learning. and saw a significant improvement in their assessment results. For example, learners were assessed before and after the intervention, resulting in a 17% improvement for English and a 42% improvement for mathematics. Our schools are also taking their own steps in developing online learning and responding to the challenges we are facing. Wynberg Boys High School has developed their own online offering, with Wynberg Online High School launching for grade 8s this year as a private co-educational education solution for those unable to find placement at the schools in the area. Daily live lessons following the CAPS curriculum are offered, along with dedicated technical support and engagement with teachers. They are also making provision for social interaction through organized extramural and sporting activities in partnership with local clubs. And online learners can also participate in certain activities offered at the school should they wish to. I'm also pleased to announce that Renish High School is going to start piloting an online offering called Renish Connect from next year for grades 10 and 11. The intention is to provide more opportunities for learners who need more flexibility and who do not flourish in traditional school environments, while retaining a strong link with the school. It is still very much in the initial phases, and we will work together with them to maximize learnings from this pilot project. I look forward to seeing the results of this and wish them all success. I turn now to maths and physical science, two key subjects needed in our economy and part of our STEAMAC strategy. I'm very pleased that both our mathematics and mathematical literacy pass rates increased in last year's NSC and remain the highest in the country. Last year, we received excellent results in the Trends in International Mathematics and Science study, scoring significantly higher than the rest of the country as a benchmark participant. Notwithstanding this, I remain concerned that our participation rate in both these subjects is too low, and we are determined to translate these gains into more learners writing and passing these subjects in grade 12. One of the things we will do is pay closer attention to our focus schools, some of which have been taking in learners who do not qualify according to their ability, and this needs to change. I'm also very hopeful that if we can get streaming of classes right, we can expand our offerings to areas where there are insufficient learners for a particular subject to justify a teacher post in that subject, or insufficient subject experts. I do remain concerned about the effect of league tables on the achievement of our learners in the subjects that are critical to the economy, such as maths, science, and technical and vocational skills. I'm concerned that the ongoing focus on being the top encourages the dropping of these subjects in order to improve averages, which is not necessarily in the best interests of our learners or our economy. The DBE itself has recognized this and has developed an inclusive basket of results measure of the quality of a province's matric results that goes further than the overall pass rate. Indicators include maths and science pass rates, maths participation rate, throughput, and the percentage of bachelor's passes and distinctions. I look forward to seeing what this measure reveals about the league table this year. It is a pity that this is not released at the same time as the results are. We wonder why. We know why. We are, however, working hard to improve even more in mathematics and physical science, in addition to the work we are doing in the foundation, intermediate, and senior phases to provide a solid grounding and interest in these subjects. We are implementing specific interventions for grade 10 to 12 learners. We are using ICT to support revision and consolidation with a Siavula program and providing opportunities for self-directed learning using video lessons distributed via WhatsApp. We support learners who are struggling with revision and consolidation in the form of weekly revision questions. Our grade 11 and 12 learners also have access to revision materials with supportive telematics recordings to mediate this material. And we provide scientific calculators to learners at 30 schools to improve accessibility of these subjects. The Metro Central Education District broadcast mathematics and physical science tutoring lessons to over 200 learners in a single session last year. We have also seen some very promising results from a program called Reflective Learning. This has been tried out at Apex High School, made possible thanks to the support of their operating partner as a collaboration school. The program identifies backlogs for each individual learner using a baseline assessment to determine their grade level understanding of specific concepts. The program then provides a personalized catch-up course to bridge these gaps. This approach has proved extremely beneficial for Apex High learners. For example, the 2020 grade 11s were able to catch up 3 grade levels on average before entering matric this year. This is not a one-hit wonder either. Similar improvements were seen in the Ibodi Trust intervention I mentioned earlier, with learners catching up an average of over 3 grades in various specific mathematics learning areas in just 3 months. The potential for this program to assist learners coping with gaps in knowledge aggravated by the COVID-related disruptions is something worth exploring on a wider scale too, if we can find the budget. On the issue of curriculum in general, I really want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Peter Beerts and his team. Dr. Beerts is also retiring this week, and I believe that the work he has done will only really come to fruition in years to come. So although we face huge challenges in the department, this has not dampened the enthusiasm of our staff and our schools to try new things and remain positive. We have had an unbelievably tough year, and the road ahead looks just as bumpy in many respects. Coping with the impact of the pandemic and the increasingly difficult funding situation will take great courage and leadership. On this note, I must commend the lifelong work and leadership of our outgoing head of department, Mr. Brian Schroeder, who retires tomorrow after nearly 5 decades of outstanding service to education. Yes, thank you. I wish you a restful and relaxing retirement within reason, but your character clearly does not lend itself to too much leisure. So I have no doubt that you will continue to make a contribution to our cause of delivering quality education to every learner in our province, one way or another, where you have the opportunity. I also want to welcome our new HOD, Mr. Brent Walters. I'm glad he's taking some detailed notes and wish him all the very best as he tackles the challenges I have outlined in this speech and others he has already come to recognize. As always, I salute the courage and dedication of our officials, school staff members and teachers, and the parents who support them. And to our learners who, despite the devastation and disruption of the past year, still continue to seek better opportunities through education. We will continue to do our very best for them so that they, in turn, can do their very best. I ask that this House support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I now call upon the Honorable Said.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As South Africa's Human Rights Month is now drawing to a close, the Democratic Alliance government in the Western Cape asks us to approve a budget that widens inequalities in the education system and which exacerbates the violation of children's rights to quality basic education. This proposed budget demonstrates a refusal to overcome the education challenges which impact on the lives of the poor majority and is therefore rejected by the African National Congress. Instead, what we find is the MEC speaking about Member Dugmore when he was the MEC. And let me add that when Member Dugmore made those calls, national government actually increased the budget for education. In fact, in addition to that, Member Dugmore actually spoke at the time about a once-off tax payment system to actually assist with schooling, as was called for in 1994. Yesterday, we woke up, Honorable Speaker, to the news of parents and community of Mossel Bay, that they closed down a secondary school in Mossel Bay, Indiwe, in protest against unacceptable levels of overcrowded classrooms and teacher shortages at the school since the beginning of the year. The school governing body argues that the Western Cape Education Department asked the school to accept all learners that had applied at the school and promised to provide additional classrooms and growth posts, but has yet to be provided with such. This is not an isolated incident, Honorable Speaker. It is part of the bigger problem across our province. Over 6,000 learners remain unplaced, while others are learning under trees. Speaker, I say over 6,000 and cannot speak today about exact figures. We spoke about exact figures when we received a written reply to our question from the MEC. But today I cannot speak of an exact figure because this is the last figure. The over 6,000 is the last figure that was given to us on Friday, the 18th of March by the Honorable MEC in the committee. It is an absolute shame that to date we are yet to receive updated figures of unplaced learners, despite a commitment made by the Honorable MEC and her department to the Committee on Education that we will receive these on a weekly basis. Our requests have fallen on deaf ears, and I'm now sadly able to assume that these are being withheld deliberately to basically undermine our oversight. I hope that this is not the case. Every time we highlight the need for building of new schools and additional classrooms, the MEC uses a fig leaf of budget cuts to hide the gross negligence and failures to plan for rising learner population in the Western Cape. The infrastructure development budget for the Western Cape increased from 1.68 billion in 2017-18 to 1.8 billion in 2021-2022. This allocation has increased by 4.34% from the 1.74 billion in the 2020-2021 revised estimates. The Western Cape is not the only province that registers learners from other provinces. For the 2021 academic year, Gauteng registered 102.648 new learners coming from other provinces, and only 653 of those learners were unplaced. Surely by now, most of those learners in Gauteng would have been placed. Of the new learners registered in Gauteng, only 1,500 migrate, not only, but over 1,500 migrated from the Western Cape. It is unacceptable, Honourable Speaker, that no allocation is made for infrastructure and planning. Why is this provincial government not looking up to provinces such as Gauteng, where all schools are used to optimal capacity? The former Model C schools must increase class sizes to acceptable class sizes so that we can address the issue of unplaced learners. Our demand remains clear. WCED must stop closing schools arbitrarily. It must build new schools, and it must also build additional classrooms. The new schools that are built, we must also ensure that those temporary schools in our poor communities are developed into being permanent structures, and there must be more teachers employed. The department that always laments about budget cuts, and yet the MEC spoke about it, gives back 350 million rand to the Provincial Revenue Fund. The Western Cape government would rather pursue a duplicate vaccine rollout program than to invest money into the education of our children. This is the reason as to why we reported the department and the MEC to the South African Human Rights Commission and the Public Service Commission last week. The department has built, in fact, under the MEC's leadership, a war chest of 7.3 million for legal fees so that it could defend its violation of learners' basic right to education and victimization of selected educators who raise critical issues. There are more cases of violations of learners' rights in some of our schools, including the rights of learners who are elected by their peers to hold those running these schools accountable. Elements, for example, at the Ned Douman High School in Athlone are given full cover and protection by officials in the WCED at the circuit level in particular. The Representative Council of Learners, or the RCL leadership of the school, is being allegedly undermined and purged by the principal because they are fighting for their rights. The RCL chairperson filed a complaint to the principal on behalf of the life sciences matriculants who did not understand the work given to them by the teacher and felt that the teacher was being inadequate in the way the subject was being taught. The school's head of life sciences asks the learners to give the teacher more time. The principal dismisses the concerns of the learners. Following this, the RCL chair wrote to the circuit manager, wrote to the school, wrote to the governing body, and wrote to myself as the MPL, requesting intervention on behalf of the learners. The principal went and attacked the RCL chairperson, accusing her of bringing the school into disrepute. The attack and the crude remarks by the principal. We must condemn this conduct by the principal and his efforts to undermine the oversight role of this particular legislature. The conduct of the principal and the fact that no action has been taken against him exposes poor management, especially when it comes to these issues at schools and disempowering RCLs. In fact, the learner was reprimanded by the circuit manager for writing to him, for alerting me of this situation. Seemingly, these officials, a principal and a circuit manager, does not understand how democracy works. And I say this not to paint all the officials with the same brush. There are senior officials who understand what's happening. We need this budget to strengthen district officers so that they can be able to address such issues in a more hands-on manner. The budget for the public ordinary school education, Speaker, is increased by 2.97% from 17.9 billion revised estimates to 18.4 billion in 2021-2022. While the increase is most certainly welcome, it is concerning that the bulk of this will have to assist the DA-run City of Cape Town to make profits from water sales. The commodification of basic services in the city has seen our schools being charged at business rates for municipal services such as water, electricity, and refuse removal. This is cruel, Speaker. Speaker, I want to thank you, but in closing, I want to also thank, and is present here, Mr. Brian Schroeder, for the efforts that he has made over all these decades in the service of education. We want to thank him for the kind of working relationship, even though we have raised critical issues about the department. He has been mature enough to engage with us in a mature manner, and we wish the new HOD all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Said. Your remarks to the HOD, I didn't want to be nasty to the HOD. They are very much welcome, but they could have been accommodated earlier. So let us please respect the presiding officer. Thank you, honorable members. I now request the Honorable Makamba Boja to address the House.
The Western Education Department continues the field of Eastern Cape. This is a department that lists as its vision to provide quality education for every child in every school in the province. However, the lived reality is the opposite. Not only are they failing to provide quality education, as we saw with the declining matric pass rates in the recent years, but they're also failing to make sure that every child in this province is allocated a classroom, denying these children their constitutional right to education as entrenched in classrooms, in South African Constitution rather. Schools in the province remain unsafe, and the department is of the opinion that the erection of some cheap fences in these schools will all of a sudden turn them into safe havens. Here we are dealing with an education department headed by a provincial minister who has no clue as to what she's doing, and a DA political party which has no values for education. Honorable Speaker, we have more than 700 unplaced children just in the area of Forest Village, a new residential area, and currently learning under the trees assisted by unemployed educators. As the minister has mentioned now in his speech, about the issue of Forest Village, the matter could have been avoided if planning of that housing project was done effectively. What is actually happening in Forest Village is just another manifestation that this government does not treat communities equally and is failing our people in getting essential services. And this speaks directly to the poor planning by the DA-led government at provincial level and also at local level. They could have foreseen that a large number of communities are cycled. There would then be a need for schools and other facilities like clinics to be built in that area. The Economic Freedom Fighters Speaker does not support vote 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Makamba Boja. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the minister said that we must not jump up and down when learners are not placed. Of course, we must jump up and down until these learners are placed, and we will continue to jump up and down until these learners are placed. We want to know from the minister this afternoon, how many learners are not placed? How many learners are not placed? People are sent to the district offices, and especially the one in Mitchell's Plain, and to place their learners on a waiting list. And yet, the district office in Mitchell's Plain don't have the decency to communicate and inform the parents when their children will be placed. Another question I want to put to the minister is, Florida High School has now, maths and science is no longer offered at Florida High School. And 25 learners must look for alternative schools or change their subjects. I want the minister to answer, why are we closing down maths and science? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. Honorable members, I now call upon Honorable Brenkes to address us.
Thank you, Speaker. Al Jamar remains very concerned that there are no provisions in the budget to accommodate the more than 6,000 compulsory school-going age learners still waiting to be placed. These learners are from working class communities and they are missing out on the first term of schoolwork. There are several religious schools who are struggling to survive, who can accommodate the learners not placed yet with the assistance from the department. The province fails to prioritize the fact that every school-going age child has a constitutional right to be in a place of learning. Why is the province using 800 million rand of its reserves to fund its own COVID-19 vaccine program whilst learners are losing out on education? It is clear that the province is hoarding funds for its own political agenda instead of addressing the shortages of schools. Also, why is the department not looking at placing the learners at the former Model C schools? There is an urgent need to avail more resources for schools, teachers, and classrooms.
Thank
It is
you.
a disgrace
Thank
that
you,
we
Honorable
will still have
Franke.
learners who have
Time
to
is.
sit under trees to receive education.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Franke. Honorable members, I now call upon the chairperson of the Standing Committee for Education, Honorable Porter.
Speaker, on a point of order, please. Why did you miss me?
Honorable members, order. Honorable Murray, you're not on the speaker's list.
I am Speaker. I've got the list right in front of me. I am before Brinkcase. Unless they have several speakers list, I'm on this list.
I'm wearing digital lenses. You are on the next one, Honorable Murray, and that is human settlements. So on the education.
On education, Speaker. Vote 5. I'm on this list.
Honorable members, I would like to acknowledge the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to our records, we received a note from the Honourable Murray's office to ask that he be removed from votes 4, 3, 12, and 5. 5 being education, and therefore we did not include him in the speakers list. That is the reason.
I therefore apologize to the Speaker and to the Whip. I was not aware that I was taken off that list. I do apologize.
Thank you very much, Honorable Murray. According to the Chief Whip, you have taken yourself off. Thank you very much, Honorable Murray. Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. I now recognize the Honorable Porter. Please address the House.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Honourable Speaker, the budgetary impact of COVID-19 across departments has been profound. It has significantly impacted all frontline services, particularly health, but not without severe constraints on education and economic activities as a whole. But Speaker, as I present support for Vote 5 of the Western Cape main appropriation today, I also wish to highlight the competence of Provincial Treasury in cooperation with the Provincial Department of Education. Working together, the outdated and illogical budgetary decisions of national government has been buffered. The cracks that remain in our system can only be attributed to the ANC's neglect on their promise to prioritize education. Thus, I firstly seek to address the issue of unplaced learners in the Western Cape, which has become a political ploy of the ANC, and as much as the debate in this House must encourage the establishment of the urgent need for more resources to accommodate exponential learner growth, the opposition parties in the form of the ANC ought to use their position and influence their colleagues, part of the National Executive, to allow for funds to follow learners in the Western Cape. Member Sayed confirmed the ANC only gives money when the ANC asks. Speaker, I say this as I note the decrease in the provincial equitable share as a main departmental receipt to almost 2%, while we know we are already 5 years behind in funding following population data by Stats SA in 2016. The Western Cape government has contributed to the development of a socio-economic environment to the extent to which an increasing number of learners seek space at our province's schools. Accordingly, the WCED anticipated to accommodate well over 10,000 new learners yearly, which would require at least 10 new schools to be built per year. We nonetheless welcome the conditional grant increase that amounts to 1.15 million for the new financial year, particularly as the Western Cape Education Department goes beyond their mandate in this aspect, in making school facilities safer for learners and staff. However, the reality is that the capital expenditure budget has decreased since 2017 to under 4% this year, due to the reduction of funding in the ANC's own so-called Accelerated Infrastructure Delivery Program. Despite the strained fiscus curated by the ANC, the Provincial Treasury and the WCED has prioritized placement of learners in this budget. It is the budgetary consideration, without a doubt, which places the greatest demand on the department. However, with the resources at hand, an objective oversight assessment tells us that the provincial government is stretching its funding as far as reasonably possible. These efforts in the budget also extend to maintain overused facilities, reducing teacher-to-learner ratios, providing more support materials, as well as the expansion of access to technical, vocational, agriculture, and skilled subject schools. Speaker, on Friday, I explored the catch-22 situation of the size of the public wage bill as it compensates and grows our frontline worker base, such as teachers, nurses, and police officers. But at the same time, we run a low of these very human resources, despite the bill growing at 40% over the past 12 years. It is clear that those who have been incentivized through this unmanaged growth is the ANC's cadres. We must cut costs where we can for the national fiscus to survive, especially after COVID-19, but we must also buffer frontline departments such as education. If the national government was at all serious about this priority, they would fall in line and join us at the table of setting proper budgetary priorities. I commend Provincial Treasury's miraculous work done nonetheless to ensure more learners who seek place in our quality education system are accommodated as far as possible, while the WCED maintains an outstanding track record of performance. In the Western Cape, Speaker, we have recorded the lowest decline in the matric pass rate and improved our bachelor pass rate spectacularly, and our retention rate remains the highest nationally. This province has been commended during 2020 for the best for its maths and science results in South Africa. It is thus unfortunate to note the decrease in the conditional grants in maths and science for the new financial year at 3.81%. In this province, we have spent every cent towards the mission of quality education in every classroom at every school within the province. Whilst the Department of Basic Education was still struggling in deciding to continue or not continue with the nutritional program, the Western Cape government took a decisive view to continue with the nutritional program. Speaker, also provided for in this budget is the provision of nutritional meals to those vulnerable learners throughout this year, even if our schools may close during this academic year. Under sound custodianship of the WCED, I welcome the increase to this grant to 467 million rand over the MTEF period. In this regard, to the norms and standards provided to our schools, they would be able to use a percentage of this provision to procure for cleaning and sanitizing material as per their need. Speaker, I am however concerned on how the ANC in Gauteng could spend 143 times more than the Western Cape Education Department's entire scientifically based and approved decontamination budget in only 3 months. This wasteful expenditure in Gauteng, as called out by the investigation unit, could be put to better use here in the Western Cape. Speaker, our academic school year theme is the year of values-driven leadership, enhancing functional schools. Functional schools also mean safe schools. Therefore, school safety remains a critical priority within the policy of creating enabling environments for quality education and teaching to take place. My caution with this, once again, Speaker, is for all communities to take custodianship of schools within their respective communities and to guard these schools as the only hope as centres of learning. Speaker, in the Western Cape, we have also gone beyond expectation and introduced collaboration schools, which further seeks to address the demand of placement and quality, despite the ANC's nonsensical lack of support to the bill at the time. We have established a first ever schools evaluation authority to continuously monitor our performance and improve results in all aspects. Speaker, the Minister of Finance in our province, when he delivered his budget speech, termed his budget a budget for hope. Hope for basic education to thrive in this province. Hope for every learner to access a real toilet and not a pit latrine in every school in this province. Hope for every learner to have competent leadership in every school in this province. Hope for every learner to be safe in a school in this province. Hope for every parent that his or her child's education matters. Speaker, I want to present an example of hope to this House along the lines of one of our many National Senior Certificate candidates during a very uncertain year. I want to introduce, through you, Speaker, to Minister Mbombo, a real Auntie-Sarah. In die galery vandag, Speaker, stel ek die huis bekend aan Sarah Willemse. Daar sit sy. Sy kom van 'n klein dorpie in die Weskus genaamd Eendeke. Sarah Willemse is 'n gewone huisvrou, ma van 4 dogters en 'n ouma van 4 kleinkinders. Wat besonder is, Speaker, oor Sarah Willemse, is dat sy soveel struikelblokke moes oorkom. Maar tou ingooi of opgee was nie in haar woordeskat nie. Sy het staat gemaak op uithou vermoë. Sarah het gedurende Februarie haar uitslaa ontvang. Sy het op die rype ouderdom van 61, Speaker, haar matrieksertifikaat verwerf. Sarah Willemse se matrieksertifikaat het hoop gevestig by baie jong mense in haar omgewing. Hulle vra nou vir haar aan Sarah, hoe het jy dit gedoen? Ek wil ook begin om my matriek te gaan voltooi. Speaker, Sarah het bewys, ons is nooit te oud om te leer nie. En ek weet, Sarah, jy het nog 'n doelwit. Daarop sê ek vir jou, carpe diem. Speaker, Sarah Willemse is die hoop wat ons minister van Finansies in sy toespraak na verwys het. Sy is hoop vir Eendeke. Sarah Willemse, welgedaan. Met 'n holistiese opvoedingsstelsel soos in die Weskaap, hoe kan ons dan verkeerd gaan, Speaker? In hierdie provinsie vestig ons hoop. Speaker, I wish to extend a vote of thanks to Dr. Beets, Ms. Singh, and Mr. Brian Schroeder for the dedication to the WCED as they approach retirement this year. Their dedicated efforts in the Western Cape Education Department have helped us set this department aside from others. They will be missed, but I am sure that our new HOD, Mr. Brent Walters, will take forward the outstanding work of this department. I also wish to thank the Minister of Education in leading this department. Speaker, I want to thank Ms. Wasima Hassan Musa for her support to the chairperson and the committee as we maintain our oversight role towards constantly improving education in our province. Speaker, the DA supports Vote 5 budget appropriation. In the Western Cape, we table budgets with effective plans. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Porter. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Speaker, and to the speakers. Mr. Speaker, I can't but agree with Honourable Syed on one issue, and that is that learners' human rights are being violated by not being in school. And we completely agree with that and are equally concerned. But there's one thing that he needs to explain to me, is how can you employ teachers and build schools if there isn't money to do so? Because that is what we're sitting with. Unfortunately, I can't wave a magic wand and money appears. It doesn't. So we are concerned, but also a lot of the situations are being abused, like the ongoing mantra of learning under trees. People are learning under trees because they choose to do so. They were offered places and they did not accept the places, and they are trying to put conditions on accepting places, which involve forcing us to employ people who have not gone through any process whatsoever and that we cannot afford to do. So let's separate out the legitimate people who haven't got place, which there are some, and those that simply choose not to take up the places. And when we're talking about that, as far as Gauteng is concerned, that's what they do. They say, here is a place, you have the place. Whether it's next to you, whether it's 30 kilometers away is irrelevant. They say, you are offered a place, and if you don't accept it, we take you off the list of unplaced. That's how they've got 600 and we've got 6,000. We try to accommodate people as best we possibly can at schools as close as possible to where they live. Now, as far as comments about Honourable Dugmore, the solution, as usual with the ANC, is suggest a once-off tax. People are paying enough tax. We're paying far too much tax, in fact, especially when you're looking at how much of it is wasted and stolen. And instead of taking difficult decisions like closing the many, many schools in the Eastern Cape that are half empty or completely empty, they rather come and politic in the Western Cape when we don't close schools arbitrarily. We close them after a proper process, after much thought, and to develop them as part of a plan. But instead of doing that, you tell us we must increase taxes for people who are already overburdened by taxes. Not going to happen under the DA watch. So as far as India is concerned, we agree also it's unacceptable levels. We've been saying this over and over again. I don't know why people keep on raising the same issues and expect different answers. Unless we get more money, we cannot solve the problem. But India has had some relief today by the addition of 2 extra teachers, bringing their ratio down to 1:37. The numbers, they're not a mystery. People are asking us all the time. 5,741 as of today. As far as the budget being increased for infrastructure, yes, we know that. But as I said, we have a third of it had to be diverted for COVID measures last year. Because why? Because the national government is too busy bailing out SAA and failing other SOEs, instead of actually creating a fund which should be used in the case of crises such as the ones we've just had, plus the drought previously, to bail out governments when they need it. But no, that doesn't happen. So we have to take the money from our equitable share, which is already insufficient. As far as, I've said already, we never close schools arbitrarily. If they are closed, they are done so after a very careful process and much discussion and planning. War chest for legal fees, that's quite a fascinating concept. One of the strategies of the ANC is to report us to every possible body under the sun: Human Rights Commission, Public Service Commission, take us to court, get their allies to take us to court. If people stop taking us to court for every single decision we made as a government, in good faith, we might not have to have such a lot of money for legal fees. But unfortunately, we do. So that's nothing like a war chest. A lot of the things that we have to pay legal fees for are also incidents that happen at schools, which are accidents with children, for example, and for which we have to accept liability, unfortunately. But these things happen despite our best efforts. Ned Doman, I don't know what's going on there. I'm happy to have a discussion with the Honourable Syed why they are referring matters to him and not to me. I'm not sure, which also makes me a little bit suspicious of what the motives are. But you're more than welcome to discuss with me the issues of Ned Doman, and we'll see what we can do to address them if they are concerns that are not being dealt with adequately. But the crux of the matter is the ANC just doesn't understand. If you don't have money, you can't spend it. And that is why we are sitting in the situation we are sitting in at the moment as a country, because they just keep on spending money they don't have. And the policies are such that we won't be able to generate the money to pay that money back for a very, very long time. And this ongoing mantra of ex-Model C schools, which some people just don't understand, they are taking in more people. They're taking in lots more people. We've been asking them many times to please help us out, and they're doing so. But when people are paying fees, they are expecting a certain number of children. They are still more than what they're paying for. And we cannot keep on trying to destroy good schools and functioning schools because the ANC doesn't give us enough money. And they have been more than accommodating in many, many respects, and we have really been pushing them to the limit. But the ANC works on the model of a car with a flat tire. That if one tire is flat, instead of fixing the flat tire, you bring all the other tires down to that and make them all flat. You want to destroy everything that works because the national government is not working. And I will not support that on my watch, that's for sure. Got to keep the engine. Yeah, no, the engine hasn't got petrol on. EFF, that's quite fascinating comments that you made. Declining matric pass rates. Well, everyone's matric pass rates declined last year. Ours declined the least in the entire country, despite the fact that we had increased our retention rate. So I think we've done quite well. As Forest Village, I've already discussed, and it has nothing to do with planning. Honourable Christians, I've told you the numbers are not placed. And yes, you can jump up and down, but I can't, unfortunately, not manufacture classrooms, and I cannot manufacture money for teacher salaries. Florida High School, I will look into. I'm not aware of that, and I am equally concerned about, as I've mentioned, about maths and science participation, and I will ask what that is about. Honourable Brinkcase, the department's not funding anything for vaccines, but I presume you mean the government. It's not 800 million for vaccines either. It's 150 for procurement of vaccines. And I've dealt with the Model C schools. Honourable Boerta, thank you very much. Also do want to thank you for your leadership of the Standing Committee and for the members of the committee who do hold us to account. And yes, thank you also for your mention of the Schools Evaluation Authority, which is really doing incredibly good work with very limited resources. Their website is up and running. We already have a number of school evaluation reports that are loaded onto their website. And they've also last year repurposed themselves into examining how schools were dealing with the COVID situation. Instead of going into hiding, they actually just changed how they did their work. And they've now also put those reports on the website. So thank you for that. En aan Sarah Willem sê baie geluk. Dis 'n ongelooflike prestasie en ek sien uit om te sien watter volgende kwalifikasie u gaan nou kry. Baie dankie. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes the debate on this vote. The Secretary will read the sixth order.
Debat oor begrotingspos 8, menslike nedersettings, Wes-Kaapse begrotingswetsontwerp W4 2021.
Baie dankie, Mr. Secretary. Honourable members, some movement. Thank you very much, honourable members. I now acknowledge and recognize the Minister of Human Settlements, Honourable Simars. You may address the House.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Premier, Honourable Cabinet colleagues present physically and virtually, of course, Honourable members, but also our honoured guests who are following today's sitting via the YouTube link. Speaker, in less than 3 years, we will be commemorating 30 years as a democratic state. Ongelooflijk, 30 jaar. As a country, we have really come a long way, having faced and endured a myriad of challenges before becoming this democratic state. At this very moment, we are faced with one of the biggest health pandemics of our era, which has really forced us to change the way we live and to adapt to a new normal. This has led to a lot of confusion and anxiety about all our futures. Speaker, if there is one area where our residents do not have to feel anxious about, then it's the provision of housing opportunities in the Western Cape. We have demonstrated year on year how effective we are in delivering for and to those who deserve it the most. I need to emphasize those who deserve it the most. Our track record speaks for itself. And as a snippet, since the 2017-18 financial year, we have delivered over 26,000 stop structures and just under 24,500 service sites. This is more than 50,000 housing opportunities during this period. The reason why we've been able to do this is because our entire focus is on improving the lives of our people and ensuring a tangible difference is made in their lives. Speaker, oral waar ons gaan, betoon begunstigdes hul dankbaarheid teenoor die behuisingsgeleentheid of geleenthede of titelaktes wat hulle ontvang vanaf ons. Nie net maak dit my elke keer nederig nie, maar dit herinner my ook daaraan dat ons 'n uiters belangrike rol te speel het om mense se lewens en hul lewensomstandighede heeltemal te verbeter. And this is so because as from the beginning of my tenure, I've stated that as a department, we are focused on 4 key drivers. And these drivers are proving to be quite effective. Just last month, a resident from George downloaded our WCG app and was very happy as he could, in the palm of his hands, obviously, immediately see his status and where he is on the demand database. It also clearly indicated to this gentleman where his housing opportunity will be in the near future. This app ensures our citizens can easily access information on government housing assistance, such as registering for the first time or updating the details on the housing demand database, as this future beneficiary clearly did. Speaker, this is but one example of being innovative and utilizing technology optimally. 'n Onlangse besoek aan Villiersdorp vir 'n goeie doel, moet ek byvoeg, gegee wat laasweek gebeur het ons meer as 200 titelaktes gaan oorhandig. Een van hierdie begunstigdes is die 64-jarige Johanna Nelly, wie die voormalige ANC wijkraadslid was van hierdie wijk, het gesê dat, en ek haal haar aan, sy sal nooit verstaan, ek sal nooit verstaan wat hierdie oorhandiging vir haar en haar gesin beteken nie. Met diep emosie het sy verder aangelei dat haar ontslape man hoog in die lug sou spring, al het hy 'n heupprobleem gehad, omdat een van sy lewenswense was om 'n ware eienaar van sy huis te word. En hierdie provinsiale regering het dit moontlik gemaak vir Johanna Nelly van Villiersdorp. Speaker, it is the feeling of joy and empowerment we want to leave with our people, as we believe that true empowerment is ownership. Even though the National Department of Human Settlements discontinued the title deed restoration grant, we will still be in a position to transfer 8,110 title deeds to qualifying beneficiaries for the financial period 2021-2022. Ons gaan nie dat ons terughou nie. This will be done through our Asset Finance Reserve for Human Settlements Fund. This reserve is quite significant, as we cannot sit back and watch our people being denied such an opportunity or important tool to further strengthen the access to potential economic and other opportunities that comes with having a title deed. This reserve, which has been created for human settlements in the Western Cape, given the shrinking budget envelope, will amongst others further be used to augment the insufficient mega allocations in municipalities, assist municipalities to unlock the value of strategic assets, including land and buildings. Also, it can be used for job creation initiatives through the building sector, including developing business and industrial hubs in many other initiatives, to mention but a few. Along with this, the Cape Agulhas Deferred Ownership Program will also be kicking off this year. This is primarily focused on those individuals who are seeking to acquire property, but due to various reasons are unable to do so immediately. Through this initiative, they will have an opportunity to form part of the wider credit readiness program while renting their units and the possibility of eventually owning these properties within a specific time period. Speaker, all of this leads to eventual ownership, and as I said earlier, true empowerment is ownership. Speaker, the reality in the Western Cape is that more than 70% of our people are employed. Of course, the highest employment rate in the country, yet another area where the Western Cape continues to lead. Now, a large majority of this number would never qualify for a BNG or fully state subsidized home. as they have a household income of over 3,500 rand. Yet, it is the same people who do not earn enough to qualify for a bond from a financial institution, or when they could qualify for a bond, they might have a poor credit record, which leads to a refusal to being assisted by financial institutions to obtain a bond. What happens in an instance such as this, you might ask? And as a department, we say, let's assist those who are regarded as being in the missing middle. We refer to this group as the affordable housing market. These are individuals where the household income is between 3,501 Rand till 22,000 Rand. To these individuals, I would like to say, there are programs within the human settlements basket that could fit your pocket. Ons maak 'n plan vir elke een in hierdie provinsie, wat natuurlik die wet nakom, moet ek byvoeg. These include the non-credit linked, credit linked, and finance linked individual subsidy, or as we like to call it, FLISP. Then we also have our credit readiness program, which is linked to FLISP to assist those currently seeking to acquire a property, but would first need to improve their poor credit record. Ons is hier om u te help wat die wet nakom. Speaker, these efforts are all geared towards assisting our people at owning a home, as this is true empowerment. Ons mense in hierdie Weskaap moet eiendom besit, maar ek moet benadruk wie die wet nakom en alle wettige prosesse volg om hy eiendom te kan bekom, nie om net grond te vat soos hulle hier jy lus het nie. Unlike some political parties who are seeking to disown our people through expropriation with no compensation, as the Western Cape government and as the Western Cape Department of Human Settlements, we are saying no. We want our people to own the land which they live on. This is critical if we are going to truly empower our people. More so as we were never allowed to own property in the past. Yet the irony today is we have political parties seeking to disempower our people at the moment. Die ironie van hoe die geskiedenis homself herhaal. Die bevryder word nou die een wat ons mense wil vasvang in die siklus van absolute armoede. Speaker, vir ons in die Weskaap wil ons die teenoorgestelde benadruk. By empowering our residents, we want to assist them to become self-sustainable. This is called creating an environment where our people can thrive. It is being that enabler so that our residents have the opportunity to forge a path for themselves and not the state seeking to dictate the terms of their future. Further to the various affordable housing opportunities, we also have our successful social housing developments that are currently underway. As a province, with our 8 projects, we are the leading province in the country. And this has been confirmed by the National Minister of Human Settlements, Ndiwe Sisulu. This is yet another area where the Western Cape leads. En ek hoop die oppositiepartye luister waarin ons alles leiding gee. Want baie kere mis hulle wat die leiding is. To mention a few, we have Botasig, Goodwood, Glenhaven in Bellville, and Pine Road in Woodstock that will deliver a multitude of affordable housing, social housing opportunities. Speaker, this is a government with foresight, as we have seen the need for those who earn between 1,500 Rand to 15,000 Rand per month and also require state assistance. These social housing projects are doing just that, ensuring that affordable housing opportunities become available to our people. And yes, although a tenant would never be able to own the social housing unit, I need to emphasize they will never own the social housing unit. They value the opportunity that is presented to them, as they are fully aware that the rental payment they are making is a saving of 50% and more than compared to the open market related costs. As the 36-year-old Mrs. Natalie Roberts, who recently moved into the Regent Villas social housing project in Delta Vreden Valley, which is in Mitchell's Plain, said, and I quote her, "I'm living in peace and harmony in my perfect unit, which is just right for me and my family. I'm very, very happy. We have our own space. The complex is secured, and we are not trapped in a small room anymore." Close quote. Speaker, the acceleration of social housing is in all earnestness underway, with social housing restructuring zones now having been gazetted in 11 non-metro leader towns in the Western Cape. The Artscape, Founders Garden, Helen Bowden, and Somerset Hospital initiatives also intend to demonstrate how urban development can support a range of urban uses in a highly density
inner city environment. I can add that we have also recently commissioned a feasibility scoping report of 14 further sites in the inner city. The sites form part of the pipeline of projects to be developed for the affordable housing market, which includes social housing, other rental and ownership opportunities. So die mense wat so gesê het ons doen niks. Ek hoop u luister na wat ek vandag sê. Speaker, dis die tasbare verskil wat ons in ons mense se lewens maak. En ons prioritiseer ons bejaardes, persone met 'n mediese gesertifiseerde gestremdheid, persone wat al 15 jaar en langer op die behuisingswaglys is en natuurlik ons agterplaatsbewoners. Ons bou reeds voort daarop om geleenthede aan ons inwoners moontlik te maak. Now, just to highlight certain things, Speaker, qualifying and deserving beneficiaries are continuously moving into their homes in Vredebes and Ceres, Vlakkeland in Paarl, which is one of our catalytic projects, in Veldrift on the west coast, even though we had a bit of action before they could finally move in, and also in Grabouw, where we will soon be handing over even more houses in Rooidakkies, Honourable Speaker. Here in the Cape Metro, beneficiaries are moving into our Forest Village catalytic project, and yes, it is changing a lot of people's lives. At the end of February, a total of 2,578 units have already been handed over. Of these, 579 are from the N2 Gateway, 504 from the Southern Corridor, 145 are priority cases from across the metro area, and the majority, which is 1,350, are locals. And I do need to re-emphasize the majority, which is 1,350, are locals, because sadly certain opposition parties are reporting that locals are not being afforded an opportunity. And I would like to tell them on record today, what you are spreading and what you are encouraging is completely false. Kry jou feite reg of hou jou mond. Qualifying and deserving beneficiaries will also soon be moving in Barrydale, which is in Swellendam, for those members who do not know where Barrydale is. But once again, this is an historic moment for that community as we will be concluding the changing so many people's lives in that rural community of the Western Cape. Iets om ook beslis na uit te sien, agbare speaker, is in die tuinroute, meer spesifiek onze Syferfontein 1 projek in George, waar die eerste flus behuisingseenhede binne die nuwe boekjaar al nuwe eienaars gaan kry. En alhoewel George mense sê is smart die huisies, ja, hulle is baie smart en hulle lyk baie smart van binne. Ek kan ook reeds noem aan u speaker dat ons ook die eerste van hierdie projek het 'n totaal van amper 897 BNG eenhede. En ons gaan binnekort meer as 300 van die 897 oorhandig aan die individue wie al so lank wag. So weer eens, hierdie is 'n regering wat sy mense se lewens verander. Met woord en met daad. Speaker, true empowerment is ownership. And everything that I've just highlighted to you is tangible, it's life-changing, because it makes a difference in the people's lives that this government truly touches on a daily basis. But now let me focus on the appropriation budget, Speaker, which is why I'm here today. Speaker, over the MTEF, over 7.2 billion rand has been appropriated. For the 2021-2022 financial year, we have a budget allocation of just over 2.35 billion rand. This will enable us to deliver 14,596 housing opportunities. I need to reiterate, 14,596 housing opportunities. These housing opportunities consist of 6,324 service sites and 8,272 top structures or units. Part of this year's allocation is, we also note, the Informal Settlement Upgrading Partnership Grant, or the ISUPG. It's its first year, which amount has been budgeted for 457 million rand. This is a people-centered and partnership-based approach to support informal settlement residents across the Western Cape. The first cycle of projects, which we've already identified and has been approved, seeks to accelerate basic services to informal settlements and improve fire safety, which so many cases or many times we've seen in the past is a sad reality for these communities. While over time, want ons kan nie alles in 1 jaar doen nie, moet ek benadruk, we will assist residents to have access to public infrastructure, finance, yes, land, not illegal land legally, tenure to the land, economic opportunities, and incremental housing opportunities. Want soos die koek kleiner raak, dis maar baie meer innoverend dink, achtbare speaker. So 457 million rand will ensure that more than 74,000 households in various informal settlements across the Western Cape will experience an improvement in the quality of their lives in the area where they live. We are ensuring livable areas for various communities. Want ons gee om vir al ons mense. There will also be a keen focus on the Rapid Land Release Program, which focuses on the delivery of service sites and stands, but I need to emphasize, service sites and stands for all qualifying beneficiaries on land earmarked for human settlements development, and the provision has been made for medium to high density developments. Affording opportunities and empowering our youth and women is another key focus area for my department. Want in baie gevalle is hierdie twee primêre sektore wat ook ons help om nuwe gemeenskappe te vestig reg oor die Wes-Kaap. For this reason, we will continue to use 50% of our HSDG grant to empower contractors from all targeted groups, including women and youth. But I do need to ask them, ensure that you are on our database, please. Anders dan gaan die bus jou verbyry. We also remain committed to train young people in various disciplines in the built environment to ensure they are upskilled and ultimately acquire meaningful employment. And by utilizing our EPWP program for this one, the new financial year, 800 job opportunities will be created, but also we will see 800 young people receive a skill which they can master and move into the future. Speaker, 500 houses will also be built using sustainable building technologies. And this will particularly be incorporated at our Transex catalytic project in Worcester. Now, Speaker, let me pause on this one for a moment because this is one of the few challenges which we need to be honest about because it has been challenging on the specific site. But as a minister with my senior members of the department, I've gone back to all those beneficiaries, actually last week. And I actually apologize for the delay which they've experienced because I'm part of an accountable government. And I had to go back and account for why certain things have not been happening. Ek kan nie sien dat ander ministers in ander provinsies dit gaan doen nie, maar dis nou 'n ander story. But we also, instead of saying we are sorry, we paved and showed them the new way forward by when they would be moving into their houses and what steps we have taken to ensure that no regression is ever experienced by them by the contractor. And I'd also like to clearly state, once again, ek moet net die rekord regstel aan sekere lede wat aanlyn is vandag, wat baie lief is vir Facebook en om verkeerde informasie te versprei. I'd like to clearly state the budget for this project has not been withdrawn, nor has this project been downscaled or cancelled in any way. The fact is we will move ahead and people or beneficiaries will move in very soon. Speaker, I'm also particularly excited about what is transpiring in both the Wedge, the new Woodlands and Greater Retreat developments. I'm certain that once they are completed, they'll make a significant difference in the lives of those that will benefit from them. Speaker, our citizens can trust this provincial government. But Speaker, we are also a department who is truly utilizing technology optimally. And another exciting feature of how we have done this is through our Western Cape Rental Housing Tribunal that are now conducting virtual hearings to ensure the acceleration of the caseload. And you can remember, Speaker, the last time I spoke, we had a massive backlog of community care cases. Many of them were historical. And this is during COVID period, 90% of the caseload has been dealt with by ensuring that we use technology smartly. Further to this, those seeking to lodge complaints can now use the very first tribunal web and mobile app solution, which forms part of the Western Cape Government's e-services portal, if they want to log a complaint and even follow their complaint. Want ons weet, ons mense moet ingelig bly. But Speaker, I'm a firm believer in continuously engaging our various stakeholders. More so because my department normally is at the forefront of a lot of what happens in a community or what does not happen in a community, to be quite frank. Because we play a critical role in ensuring the success of many of our projects, but we ensure the success of our projects by engaging our stakeholders honestly and transparently. For this reason, as of the middle of April, my department and I will be embarking on a ministerial outreach program where we will take the budget to each district, and there are 5 of them in the Western Cape, to clearly show the municipalities what their allocations are, should they have projects in their areas, and should they not have projects, we will give them advice on how we can assist them moving forward. Ik denk onder andere nou aan Lynsburg, achtbare Paardman. U gaan nou ongelukkig hierdie slag die trein nou mis. We've already signed an historic partnership with the Garden River District Municipality, which further strengthens housing initiatives and opportunities for an entire district. This approach ensures that there is synergy and full cooperation between the different spheres of government, while also removing unnecessary red tape and bureaucracy that at times tend to delay the implementation of so many of our projects. Speaker, we are changing the cooperative governance landscape as a department, in conjunction with our sister department, the Department of Local Government, I should add. This step is part of our strategic objective to ensure integrated development planning that is socially, financially, affordable, and sustainable, whilst offering a wide range of housing and tenure options as we move forward into the future Western Cape. In conclusion, Speaker, as a government, we have consistently demonstrated our ability to deliver and perform. Die getalle is op die bord. It is part of the reason why we've once again received an additional conditional grant funding to the tune of 220.8 million rand from the National Department. From this funding, 150 million rand goes to the HSDG grant for housing to finance 7 projects across our province, while 70.8 million rand goes to the Provincial Emergency Housing Grant to support the victims of the terrible fire which occurred in Masipumelele, which broke out on the 17th of December 2020. I'm pleased to say that steady progress is being made with resettling the victims into emergency structures. Because as of yesterday, more than 600 emergency units have been constructed, with 401 being on the site where the fire occurred, and all of those units are occupied, while 180 families have moved into the emergency units on the sports field, which I do need to emphasize. We consulted the broader community leadership and the City of Cape Town together with the National Department. So ons het nie die sportgronde gevat soos ons wil nie, having listened to a previous budget vote and certain comments. There are various statutory processes which are currently underway, and it is expected that we should conclude these statutory processes by October, November, Honourable Speaker. And should there not be any delays or objections or unnecessary protest actions, which we have seen 2 weeks ago in Masipumelele, I need to emphasize to that community that the construction of the permanent and long-term housing solutions, which will consist of sustainable housing technology, will commence after November, depending on what you do moving forward together with us. And I can say with confidence, we are committed to delivering for our people, Speaker. There is, however, a real threat to that which we are attempting to achieve as a provincial government, and that is the continued illegal land invasions and attempts to illegally occupy our units. My call to all members of this House is to assist us in condemning this type of behavior, as it only causes further delays by setting projects back for months and at times years on end. For the 2020-2021 financial year, we've had to spend over 355 million rand on preventing these illegal invasions, funds that could have been better spent, Speaker. And members, we'd like you to walk the journey with us. Hold me and my department accountable. Conduct your oversight, but do not be part of those whose motive it is to be a hindrance and a disruptor of service delivery instead of assisting us to accelerate service delivery. Let's instead instill hope in our people instead of playing the politics of fear with our people's lives. At this point, I'd like to thank my departments, HOD, and my entire EXCO team who are all online virtually, my entire senior management team for their unwavering support and commitment to changing the lives of our people. To all the 439 staff in the department, yes, 439, thank you for not losing sight of our vision to ensure residents have access to livable, accessible, safe, resilient, affordable, but multi-opportunity settlements. To my immediate team in the ministry, and two of them are in the gallery to ensure I'm not alone. Thank you for your guidance, drive, patience, and always challenging the status quo to improve the future of our people. Dit word oprecht waardeer. Dankie, Vuvu. To my family, my wife and children, hulle sê daar nog nie oor my. Thank you for the immense sacrifice in allowing me to fully, and I need to emphasize fully, serve the people of our province. Many a times, losing a lot of quality family time while I'm doing this. I truly appreciate your support through this journey. Thank you. Baie dankie.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Minister. Will you please switch off your mic? Both of them. Thank you. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Member Lily.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to decline support for the budget vote. The budget vote for 2021-22 financial year is 2.35 billion for this department. The bulk of this goes to the housing development program, which is allocated 2.14 billion, which includes 1.58 billion for human settlement grant. Allow me to add that in the third adjustments, which we discussed last week, this department was received 70.8 million for emergency housing and a further 150 million for human settlement development grant. The purpose of the human settlement development grant is to provide funding for the progressive realization of access to adequate housing through the creation of a sustainable and integrated human settlements, as well as to facilitate a programmatic and inclusive approach to informal settlements. When the ANC government took a decision to change the Department of Housing to the Department of Human Settlement, the focus was to move away from housing being just a roof over people's heads. It was shifting to providing sustainable and integrated human settlement, where people can work, play, and have access to amenities required for their day-to-day living. The Democratic Alliance either does not understand the purpose of this department and why they are allocated funds for the HSDG, or the party is hell-bent on sabotaging the efforts of national government to reverse apartheid spatial patterns and ensure building of quality human settlements. There are many examples to prove this. For instance, in the forest village, a human settlements project of this government, learners are learning under the trees because they do not have a school to be taught in their mother's tongue. The Western Cape government has identified vision-inspired priorities, to which include mobility and spatial transformation and human settlements. There is no urgency in the Western Cape to accelerate spatial transformation. The MEC, if he is so wishes, can dispute this, but he must shed more light on how much its government will spend on spatial transformation. What we know over the past few years is that the provincial government sold the Tafelberg school site despite there being a feasibility study showing that it was suitable for social and low-cost housing. The DA has no shame. The Devil's Alliance has no shame, as it is busy wasting taxpayers' money to appeal the Tafelberg judgment. This government argued in court that it has no obligation to specifically unlock public land for the purposes of providing affordable housing near places of opportunity. The DA, the Devil's Alliance, argues in court that it has no obligation to redress spatial apartheid through providing housing in the city state, that our people belong in the Cape Flats and the townships in the outskirts of the city. The DA remains unbothered and will not spend the public money to improve conditions of our people in the townships and Cape Flats. At the height of COVID-19, as the third wave looms, this DA government is unbothered by the fact that people in informal settlements do not have basic services such as water, sanitation, and electricity. Efforts by the national government to de-densify overcrowded settlements were sabotaged by this government. The residents protested in the streets last week, closing down roads and burning rubble as they demanded better services from the DA government. Our demand on this budget are clear. We want the DA to urgently redress the shameful and divisive legacy of spatial apartheid in the province. We have land and budget for this. The only thing standing on the way is a modern DA apartheid government that wants the people perish in the townships. The Rondebosch golf course was available. The DA in the city extended the lease of the Rondebosch golf course despite cries from the people for that land to be used for human settlement. The DA has now initiated a process to evict the people who live in the Woodstock Hospital and Hen is a shame. Must stop this persecution of the poor. It must stop wasting money in courts in order to continue with injustices. This government must build low-cost housing for people near places of opportunities. Every time we raise the need to address spatial apartheid, we are told about the Conradi better living model, the DA devil's cash cow, where millions have been spent with no single housing unit that has been built. I want to know how much of this department's infrastructure spending will benefit emerging business and contractors. In the past, many emerging contractors benefit. How, since the arrival of the new MEC, the department is talking about mega project which only benefits well-established businesses. The housing crisis in two Waterskloof continues. The people want to know how much will be spent on the waterworks project. How long should the people wait to receive their houses? Speaker, I want to understand why. Hey, speak.
Yeah, man, your time is up. Honorable members, Honorable Minister, I now recognize Honorable Makamba Poitye.
Thank you, Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in the 2020-21 financial year, this department later adjusted and reduced the housing budget in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic. The very same department which promised that it will speed up the provision of housing at the same time as de-densification mechanism to avoid congestion in informal settlement in order to mitigate against the spread of COVID-19 in those areas. Their failure to keep this promise saw a quick spread of COVID-19 infections in those areas, which resulted in many poor Black people losing their lives in the province. It has always been clear that the DA-led Western Cape government does not care about the lives and dignities of poor Black people, but one could not imagine that they could sabotage these poor people with budget and service constraints to an extent that people now had to lose their lives. Taking into account the human settlement budget cuts in the previous financial year, the allocation of 2.3 billion for the provision of housing in 2021-22 is a joke. And we all know very well that it will be reduced before the end of this year. It is for these reasons that the EFF would not support this budget. Speaker, this department has also failed dismally to give people of Mfuleni, Kairicha, Kraaifontein, and other informal settlement water and toilets during the peak of COVID-19. More than 1,000 people of Masiphumelele lost their homes thanks to the DA failing government. Just last week, all roads were closed to the city center and they were blocked by protesters who were crying for basic services, and one person lost a life thanks to this failed department led by the Minister of Free Electricity. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Members, I now acknowledge Honorable Murray. It's your time, Honorable Murray, to speak.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Speaker, Minister, you are really an eager beaver, and I can see that you're really putting a lot of effort into your portfolio. But I want to drop in my 1 minute I have to talk this with you. You need to engage a national minister on the whole PI Act. That PI Act is tying your hands. The courts have become legislators. Courts have become executives now, because the courts will tell you what to do with land, where you must do it, and whether you can utilize the land for what you want to utilize it. It's given too much power to land invaders and people who just grab land and buildings. I want you to engage a national minister on the PI Act. We don't want the Cape Town to become another Hillbrow. The ANC must learn lessons from what happened to Hillbrow and Joburg's inner city. I also want to tell the minister, where is the housing list of 1994 and onwards? What happened to that housing list? People has been on the housing list for 30 years, and newcomers get houses before.
Your time is up. Honorable Brenkes, may I address the House?
Thank you, Speaker. The Western Cape has 600,000 applicants on the waiting list for houses in the metro and outside the metro. Housing has always been a crisis, and it seems this provincial government is dragging its feet to turn the situation around. We call on the provincial government to provide dignified houses to people and not to dump them in poor quality houses and far away from where they have been used to living, close to workplaces and other amenities. The province will have to do more than relying on implementing the National Housing Program at a faster pace, and to look at creating a bigger budget to provide the masses with houses. The province has access to its own funding and land to build more houses. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Brenkes. Honorable members, I now recognize this chairperson of the Standing Committee for Human Settlements, Mama Maseko.
Thank you very much, Somlomo. Let me start by acknowledging the Premier, the leader of the opposition virtually online, and honorable members and the communities out there at large. Speaker, let me welcome the continued commitment by the Department of Human Settlements to its mission to accelerate the delivery of livable, accessible, and safe multi-opportunity settlements for beneficiaries of Western Cape. The 2.353 billion allocated to this department is welcomed for the 2021-2022 financial year, which will be another year where the Western Cape Provincial Department of Human Settlements. It wasn't me.
You may please take your seat, Honorable Masego. Just switch off your microphone a bit. Honorable members, there was a technical glitch. Honorable Masego, you may please proceed. Sorry for that.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mare, switch off your mic. As I mentioned last week in my declaration, on the third adjustment budget, this provincial department was allocated an additional 150 million rand as other provinces such as the Limpopo, Gauteng, and the Northern Cape and the Free State could not spend their own human settlements budgets and had to surrender it to National Treasury. The national government recognized the fact that the Western Cape Department consistently and without fail spends its budget and can be trusted to deliver services to the residents. But challenges remain. The Provincial Department of Human Settlements Development Grant has been reduced by 17.42% since last year's main appropriation budget, and the funding for the title deeds restoration grant has been cut entirely. This is a major setback for redress in our province, as the grant gave power to creating generational wealth and giving security to those most vulnerable. It begs the question of whether the national government is serious about uplifting the poor and empowering the vulnerable. Speaker, there has been a systematic failure by national government to bring dignity through housing opportunities. That is why we are even more grateful to have this DA government that serves the communities of Western Cape. The fact that national government has not prioritized redressing the injustices of the past has not stopped the provincial government. Speaker, this Western Cape Department has committed itself to the title deeds program and will be funding it themselves in this financial year. Beneficiaries deserve security, and this department will do all it can to make that a reality. The transfer of land parcels from National Department of Public Works remains an obstacle which only the National Department can deal with. This is the costliest issue in our province. We have seen this in Waterskloof municipality. In Grabo, land invasions are a continual problem and drastic interventions is needed to address this criminality. The land parcels that are invaded belong to the National Department of Public Works. The request for the transfer of those land parcels to the provincial or local government is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Now, the responsibility falls to the local municipality to find funding for basic services to those communities. It is therefore hypocritical of the opposition to criticize this department, whilst this Western Cape government is only province that gives communities from all provinces, and I need to emphasize that, from all provinces, hope through good governance. The slow release of land limits the work of provincial and local governments across the province. Land parcels in and around Cape Town hold great potential for bringing beneficiaries close to economic opportunities and services and could unlock special redress in our country. The ANC in this House talks about the desperate need for redress, but its national counterparts appear not to share their urgency. But Speaker, the shrinking budget of this department has been placed under even more strain due to the sharp increase and well-organized land invasion that have taken place since lockdown began last year. More than 355 million has been spent to protect land and completed units from illegal invasions. Between July and February, there are over 1,000 attempted legal invasions across the province. This is a siege upon the provincial department and diverts vital resources away from housing opportunities. Organizations facilitating queue jumping of the housing demand based masquerading as NGOs have attempted and in some cases succeeded in occupying land which has been earmarked for housing opportunities in the city of Cape Town. This has caused the province and its residents approximately 2,150 breaking new grounds units, which now cannot be built because of illegal invasions. Let me be clear. No political party neither can nor should defend these actions. And we should call it what it is, criminal behavior, which will see the poor and the vulnerable law-abiding residents pushed further down the housing demand database. It is with heavy heart that I must talk about the Bito municipality and the apparent mismanagement and incompetency from the local municipality. Earlier this month, the Standing Committee visited the municipality. After alarming reports of temporary housing materials funded by national government meant to provide shelter to residents affected by fires in 2018, which has not been used. What we found was an ANC local government which has failed on every front, leaving those without a home out in the cold. As we speak now, money is long paid to a contractor, but Dololo structures are built. Another ANC-led local municipality, Beaufort West, has through mismanagement cost its residents their dignity. The local government requested nearly 2 million to upgrade external toilets in the area. Not only did the local municipality deviate from memorandum of agreement with the Western Cape government to appoint a service provider, but not one toilet has been upgraded. The DA is serious about redress and is serious about rooting out corruption and mismanagement because the residents of Western Cape deserve a government that cares. The provincial department has committed half of its human settlements development grant to beneficiating contractors within designated groups, including businesses owned and run by young people and women. It is important that provincial government uses every opportunity to uplift, empower, and include those that have previously been excluded from the system. But Speaker, corruption is the great stumbling block of the growth and well-being of South Africa and for the Western Cape. This is why the Standing Committee will conduct multiple oversight visits this year to local governments to scrutinize their housing development projects that are underway, but more crucially, to vet their housing demand database and beneficiary lists. In line with national and provincial policies, persons over the age of 60, persons with disabilities, military veterans, backyard dwellers, and persons who have been on the Western Cape demand database for more than 15 years must be prioritized. It will not be tolerated that gaps in policies are being exploited, allegations that bribery is being used for individuals to jump the queue. Wherever the committee finds corrupt activity, it will be rooted out and individuals will be held accountable. Speaker, all I'm asking that our colleagues from the other side of the House join our fight to demand accountability from their party's national leadership, as it is costing this province unnecessary budget cuts. There is something extraordinary about Western Cape Province, that despite the budget cuts by incompetent national government, looting public purse that yearly has increased poverty, this DA-led government is making a plan. The plan is that with this 2.353 billion allocated to the department, funds will be used to create access to adequate housing and empowerment opportunities for residents. A total of 14,596 housing opportunities are set to be built this year, sustaining and creating 800 jobs. 150 young people will be trained within the built environment, and 500 houses will be built using sustainable building technologies, which is kinder to our environment than traditional brick and mortar homes. In total, 8,110 title deeds will be transferred to qualifying beneficiaries without any assistance from national government, and 450 beneficiaries will be assisted through the Enhanced Extended Discount Benefit Scheme. Speaker, the work by the Department of Human Settlements Western Cape is working tirelessly to provide housing opportunities across province must be commended. My heartfelt thanks to the Minister, Tisha Simas, the HOD, Major Key Sampson, and the entire team of the Departments of Settlements, of Human Settlements Family, in putting our residents at the center of their work and for continuing to bring redress despite a small budget. And as for Member Lily, as a brief honorable member, do your oversight responsibility, attend the standing committee to hold minister and the department accountable. Don't go to the streets. You have access of the department and Minister Tesha Simas. Come to the committees and ask questions so that you can have answers. When you go to the streets with the answers.
Honorable
The DA
Maseko.
fully support this vote. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Maseko. I see the hand of Honorable Kama. Honorable Kama, is that a point of order?
No, it can pass now as I raised it earlier. Check if the member was prepared to take a question. But it's fine. It's fine now.
Thank you, Honorable Kama. My apologies for that. All right. Now, honorable members, thank you, Honorable Maseko. I now recognize the Honorable Minister.
Baie dankie Speaker en baie dankie aan elke lid vir die insette, maar ek gaan nou in volgorde reageer. Speaker, obviously listening to Member Lily from the ANC's continuous referral to the Devil's Alliance. I remember a joke I was taught at school when we spoke about the ANC, and it's not the ANC, the political party. It says it's another no good comrade. So if you talk about the Devil's Alliance, I will refer henceforth to the ANC as another no good comrade. But Member Lily, I note your input and it's appreciated. You are like a shooting star. When we get to hear you and see you, it's a memorable moment. This is one of them. It is, however, concerning, Member Lily, that you do raise various concerns and you do raise various inputs that if you actually do attend the standing committee when I do account, I would actually be able to answer you. Maar ons verstaan, 'n skittende ster is 'n lewensveranderende sig om te sien. En u teenwoordigheid en stem alleenlik is vandag 'n groot verandering vir die wat dit kon hoor. But what is well concerning as well, Member Lily, and you referred to the protest actions and the closure last week of the R300, the N2 and Baden-Powell. We should note, and I'm speaking from data now, Member Lily, so kindly take note. So when you do appear before the standing committee again through you, Honourable Speaker, you can actually question me on this. The average age of informal settlements in the city of Cape Town is around about 30 years old. The irony, the people that closed down the R300, the N2 and Baden-Powell last week, majority of those informal settlement inhabitants have not been living there for fewer than 3 years, some even less than 18 months. So when they do protest, I need to ask myself as a member of this house, and all of us should ask that question, who do you listen to? Those that are law-abiding, have been living for 30 years in informality, legally waiting an opportunity, or those that are spurred on through criminal intent to actually demand services at the cost of those that have been living in informality for close to 30 years. That's a question we all should think about. We all like to stand up and talk about what's going wrong, but get the facts right before you speak about what is really wrong. Member Makamba Botja, thank you very much for your input, but I should just correct you on one thing, Speaker, through you. The Masiphumelele fire was started by individuals, and the City of Cape Town's fire report states this. It was started by individuals who were seeking to burn further space to erect more illegal structures. It's not the DA, it's not the City of Cape Town, it's not the ward councillor, it's those people that illegally want to occupy land. And I would encourage you, member, because 2 weeks ago there was also unrest in Masiphumelele,
and there was quite a few number of individuals wearing a specific color that is called red. And there's only one party which we're all aware of, Honorable Speaker, that wears red. So instead of encouraging illegality, you are a member of this House, you took an oath, just like I took an oath. Sit your daad by die woord. Stand up for what is right and not what is popular. Because sadly, Honorable Speaker, there is also a new name for the EFF in this country. It's actually the ANC Youth League version 2. So, to the ANC Youth League version 2, through you, Speaker, either get on board or keep quiet. Thank you very much for that. Honorable Marie, once again, ek hou baie van die insette, and I should say that it is concerning that there are still residents on the housing demand database, sometimes for 30 years and more. And my department is looking to address that. Hence, we launched the WCG app to integrate all housing demand databases across this province. And we have assisted over a number of years various municipalities through funding from our department to actually improve the quality of the housing demand database. But what we have picked up, and this is something which, once again, we are all members of this legislature, we need to remember. If I applied 10 or 20 years ago, I need to annually go and update my contact information if it has changed. Daar is ook net soveel wat die staat vir ons inwoners kan doen. Die res is die inwoner se verantwoordelikheid, want ons almal wil beter kwaliteit van lewe hê. In the member Brunkhuis from Al Jamar, thank you very much. I did appreciate hearing your voice because I haven't heard it in quite a long time. So thank you very much, and thank you for your question. I do think I'll just refer to a portion of my speech, and I did refer to the Asset Finance Reserve for Human Settlements Fund, which is a new fund unique to the Western Cape. And this fund will seek to unlock the value of strategic assets, including land and buildings, but also including developing business or industrial hubs and many other initiatives. Because when we talk about human settlements, it's about creating fully fledged settlements where all the opportunities are for our people. We need to change the mentality that we build houses, maar almal werk in die dorp. Ons moet die dorp na ons mense toe bring. And that is a true intention if we really want to address the injustice of apartheid spatial planning properly. And last but not least, my very stern and sometimes baie harde kwas, Voorsitter, Honorable Member Maseko, through you, Speaker. I really want to thank you and the Standing Committee for holding me and my department to account. We do not mind that you call us at 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, but at least there are certain issues which you hold us accountable for and which we seek to address. And if we cannot address it properly, we give you an honest reason. Because at the end of the day, Member Maseko, we need to respect the role of you as the chairperson and of the Standing Committee. But I do believe, having appeared before the Standing Committee, that some members really need to take their role as part of that Standing Committee seriously. It's easy to play the politics of emotion and to ride the tide of gossiping and being a gossip monger. But once you start engaging your community in facts, the community will actually have more respect for you than being shown for what you truly are because you are a gossip monger, which is a big liar. And your Standing Committee really has proven that you stick to the facts, you go do the interrogation like you've done in Bito. And it's a pity in Bito that with 5.4 million rand to date having been spent on what? The structures are not even up. And it's fair and it's just that you call us to account. And I thank you for that. And once again, thank you very much for affording us this opportunity, Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Simmers. And thanks to the honorable members who participated in this vote. That concludes the debate on this vote. Honorable members, the Secretary will read the seventh order.
Consideration of votes and schedules, Western Cape Appropriation Bill, B4 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. As we consider the vote, the political parties are entitled to speak for 3 minutes if they so wish. Now I put vote 1, the Premier. Are there any political parties that wish to speak? I've got the ANC. None. EFF, none. All right. I hear that there's no speakers that want to come forward. I see Honorable Murray.
Speaker, I want to tell the Premier, you must please reconsider your decision to change the Constitution, not allowing for a Commissioner for the Environment. I appeal to you, reconsider that.
Thank you, Honorable Member. There is a mic that is on. Just please assist us and turn off your mic. Thank you, Honorable Murray. That is not necessarily the vote, but I see that there is no other parties that wish to speak. The Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if we have some wires crossed, but in the programming authority, we had agreed that political parties would do declarations on all the votes instead of the individuals, considering we had in fact debated each vote separately. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable members, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to request that we put all the votes then we adopt the schedule of all the votes. And in that way, it makes it easier for the programming authorities consultation to assist the presiding officer in this case. Now I put vote 1 to 14 before the House.
We support.
Those in favor of the votes being adopted?
Support.
Support.
Those who are not in favor for the votes being adopted?
Speaker.
Say no. The question again. Thank you. Thank you.
ANC opposes.
Support.
Honorable members, the Chief Whip has given the decision of the programming authority. So if that changes, it must be the parties that change it themselves. But in this case, I'm just going to request the Chief Whip to address us again. I see some hands here in the House. I'll recognize you after that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Would it be possible that political parties could deliver one 3-minute declaration on all the votes and whether they support the bill before we consider each vote being put?
That is a new proposal, Honorable Chief Whip. What I will then do, ordinarily I would have, please switch off your mic, Honorable Chief Whip. Ordinarily, I would have afforded all political parties 3 minutes each on each vote. So what I will do, if the political parties wish to address the House on a particular matter regarding the entire vote schedule, then we can afford them 2 minutes, not more than 2 minutes. Because we've already forfeited the 3 minutes per vote. Do you want to address the presiding officer, Chief Whip?
If I may, Mr. Speaker, in the programming authority, considering that we had considered or debated for at least an hour each individual vote, we then determined that instead of doing one declaration per vote as well, that parties would do one 3-minute declaration on all the votes.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I make myself clear there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chief Whip. That has not been pre-communicated to the Speaker as I preside here now, but I accept that. Thank you, Chief Whip. I see the hands of Honorable Heron and Honorable Mitchell.
Speaker, I wanted to just confirm what I think the Chief Whip has just confirmed to you, that the parties are informed that each party would be given the opportunity to make a 3-minute declaration on all the votes. So I'm really confirming what the Chief Whip has just said.
Thank you very much, Honorable Heron. Honorable Mitchell, do you want to address the presiding officer?
No, Chief Whip, Speaker, I've was covered by the Chief Whip and Honourable Heron.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip. May I then request the political parties to address? Firstly, I want to get an indication of from vote 1 to vote 14. Whether are there any objections, and if there are objections, are there any objections?
Yes. No.
No, no
Yes.
objection.
Those in favor, please say yes. And those who say no, please say no.
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 No. No.
The objection will be noted, but at this point, I wish to allow the political parties to speak, and I'll give the DA to speak first. I'll give the ANC to speak first. Don't speak. I'll go to the next one, the EFF. I go to the next one, good.
Yes, Speaker, I do want to make a declaration.
Please proceed, Honorable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Western Cape Provincial Government and all of its members of this House have repeatedly referred to this budget as a budget of hope. And you can name this a budget of hope, but the choices made by the Western Cape Cabinet leaves us with a budget of false promise and no hope for the vast majority of the people of this province. The false promise is that this budget will make communities on the Cape Flat safer by allocating massive and disproportionate funding for the deployment of an additional 500 learner law enforcement officers to violent crime hotspots. The idea is reminiscent of the KITS constables of the 1980s, which were the instant cops created by P.W. Botha, given 6 weeks training and used to respond to the social and political realities underpinning the anti-apartheid struggle. This government hopes that its KITS cops will reduce the murder rate by 50%. There's no hope of that happening. While effective policing has an important role to play in reducing and eliminating violent crime, you cannot achieve effective policing without properly trained police officers, and you cannot eliminate crime with undertrained KITS constables. The Cabinet should have chosen to invest that 1.3 billion in addressing the spatial, social and economic conditions that give crime a breeding ground. This budget gives no hope to the children unable to access a school in their neighbourhood. The MEC says she cannot build schools because her budget was cut, but this government chose to fund KITS constables rather than co-fund access to education by funding schools or expanding schools. This budget gives no hope to the elderly who must live in a homeless shelter because this government chooses to fund KITS constables instead of public retirement homes. This budget gives no hope to the homeless who are living on the streets because this budget chooses to fund these KITS constables rather than adequate housing for the homeless and social services to facilitate reintegration. This budget gives families living in backyards or informal settlements waiting on a growing waiting list no hope of a decent home of their own in their lifetimes because this government chooses not to co-fund the building of houses to more rapidly reduce the waiting list. This is a budget of perverted priorities. It fails to address the urgent spatial, social and economic needs of the people of the Western Cape because this budget prefers to return to an apartheid idea of instant cops. It tries to create a provincial police force acting beyond its mandate while ignoring and underfunding its core mandates. This is a budget that will manifest in more crime, less development and more pain for the vast majority of the people of this province. We cannot support any of these votes. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Heron. Honorable members, I now give an opportunity to ACDP. Do you want to make a declaration, Honorable Christian?
Yes, Speaker, thank you.
3 minutes starts now, and just want to remind the political parties that, honorable members, we're doing a declaration for 3 minutes on all the votes, meaning it's 1 to 14, but that is 3 minutes that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, as the ACDP, we support all the votes. I did mention the concerns we have when it comes to, and it was addressed, but the concerns we have with education about the unplaced learners. And we really plead that the minister and the department will place these learners as soon as possible. Just coming to the LEAP officers. Now, we know that national government has cut the budgets, and also we have an under-resourced police service within the Western Cape. When you live in a township and in the evening you must lay on the ground because of gunshots being fired on a daily basis, what must the province do? The province tries, and I know it's not the mandate of the province, but you cannot just stand with your hands folded and say, I don't have the resources. Something must be done to have a safer province. And that is the point. The point is, if we have lead officers, because I've been to...
No, I'll just use 3. Yeah, okay.
Order, honorable members. Let us please keep our mics off so that the members who are speaking are able to be audible. May you proceed, please proceed, Honorable Christian.
Thank you, thank you, Speaker. 2 days ago, I was in New Woodlands, and they appreciated that the Metro Police is there and that they come at 9 o'clock and they do their rounds. The same in Another Park. I doubted if we will halve the murder rate, but the efforts by the Minister of Community Safety and the department where I'm a member of must be commended for the efforts they are trying to solve the problems when it comes to crime. Like I said, bullets is all over in the communities, freely available, guns and freely available. As a province, we cannot fold our hands. Something must be done. And this is maybe not the ultimate solution, but surely it's something in the right direction. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. FF Plus had an opportunity.
Thank you, Speaker.
You want to speak again, Honorable Murray?
No.
All right, you may
Yes,
proceed,
sir.
Honorable Murray.
Thank you. Speaker, what baffles me is how the very parties who reject this budget in the best performing province support the budgets in the worst performing provinces. I haven't seen yet the ANC or good members reject the budgets in the other 8 provinces where they rule, who's the worst performing. But they reject the budgets in the province that's the best performing. It's like a man will go to the shebeen and drink out all his money, then come home and beat up his wife because she don't have money to serve him a nice place of food. The only reason why we couldn't in the Western Cape please everybody is because national government has cut our budgets. It's an abusive husband. National government is an abusive husband, and we are the wife who suffers under that abuse. So I, from the Freedom Front, support this budget. It reminds me of the story in the Bible where Jesus says that woman who gave the farthing in the church collection gave the most because she gave her all. Everything she had, she gave. We don't have more money to give. What we've got, we've spent. Of course, the only exception being the education minister, but we will forgive her this time. But the rest, we have spent, and we've spent it well, and they got clean audit reports. So I see no reason, except for political expediency, why any party would reject this budget. The Freedom Front supports it.
Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, Honorable Murray. Honorable members are now recognize the DA. Honorable Brinkes, Al-Jamar.
Thank you, Speaker. We are covered. We are covered, Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Order, honorable members. Thank you, Honorable Brenkes. I see there's a hand here. Is that a point of order, Honorable Dagmo?
No, Speaker, just a request to make use of the 3 minutes allocated to the ANC. Speaker.
All right. Honorable Dagmo, I made an opportunity available to the ANC as the first to speak, and there was no response. I will then give you the opportunity. I hope we don't repeat the same.
I apologize for that, Speaker. Speaker, thank you very much. I think it's clear that our province and our country and other provinces are facing a serious economic challenge in the sense that our economy has not grown, that we are facing issues which have impacted on the fiscus, including issues of corruption. But I think what's important for us to note is that there has been a clear announcement in terms of the national budget around the need for economic recovery, and we are beginning to see the beginnings of that, and we are also seeing slowly that the strengthens the institutions of the state in the justice cluster have been strengthened. So the first point to make is that this province is not being penalized in any way. The key reductions that are impacting on our province and all other provinces relate to the issue of the cost of employment, compensation of employees. So we must reject a notion of a punishment of the Western Cape. This is a situation that faces all of us, and we can have a long debate about that, but the reconstruction plan is beginning to deal with that. Our problem with this budget is that when one looks at the lived reality, the DA often wants to say, and it's interesting that the Freedom Front is becoming closer and closer to the DA, not finding any reason to oppose any budget here. And that indicates the slow ideological coalescence actually between the DA and the Freedom Front on many issues that we are beginning to see. But when you look at our province and you look at the issue of how communities who have been classified as colored, as African, as white are treated, and when we say this province is the best performing, let's be very honest about the service delivery. We have a situation where we have made it very clear that in regard to land, in regard to the economy, those two issues, unless we transform the fundamental inequality, and the problem with this budget, it is not focused. It refuses to acknowledge in any way inequalities which live with us today based on race. It does not look at the issues of gender. So we have a so-called technical, fact-driven budget, but it does not take into account the very fundamental issues that unless we sort out, the issue of polarization and conflict in our province will increase. And that is why from the African National Congress, we cannot support a budget that is not transformative, that is not actually aimed at physically improving the infrastructure in those communities who continue to be affected by that. And until this happens, this province will look after the well-to-do and the privileged and will continue to ignore the majority who are without land, without title, and without access to this economy. And for those reasons, no person who believes in equality should support this budget.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. I now recognize the DA.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Budget Committee received a briefing on the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B4 2021 on 16 March 2021 after its introduction. The deliberations and public hearings on the respective votes took place, and members of the public could also raise their views should they wish after each particular vote. The Budget Committee then deliberated and reported on the bill on 25 March 2021, and having considered the various standing committee reports on the votes in the schedule to the bill, the committee reported that it supports the bill in ATC 32. As a province, we were expecting a total budget of 76 billion rand in the current financial year based on the 2020 MTIF estimates. We are now working with 71 billion rand. We were expecting 81 billion rand in we are now receiving 71 billion rand. We were expecting 84 billion rand in 2023, 2024. We are now receiving 72 billion rand. In total, the budget cuts to the 2021 MTF period now amounts to 26 billion rand, comprising of a 24 billion rand cut from the provincial equitable share and an almost 2 billion rand cut from our conditional grants, as per slide 21 presented at the budget committee. In the current financial year, despite the data update in the provincial equitable share, we are receiving a 4.8 billion rand cut, and that was promised in the 2020 MTF budget. And we had to use 2.6 billion rand of our own money to cover the deficit. But Speaker, let me be clear. When members of this House say that this province is being penalized, we made this budget because this bill is the people's money. It's not National Treasury's money. It is not provincial treasury's money. It is the people's money. And national government does not do us a favor by giving us a provincial equitable share. They do not do us a favor. You know, die ANC doen ons nogals nie 'n guns nie. Dis die mense se geld. It's the people's money. And Speaker, the biggest conditional grant cut, ironically enough, for this year will be to the health budget, totaling over 400 million rand. This year, 595 million the next year, and 992 million in the outer year in the MTF period. In terms of Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress then expressed its minority view to not support this bill. But despite this objection, Speaker, I would like to thank the ANC, and I have the committee reports that was adopted here with me in my hand, for supporting the health vote as well as the economic development and tourism vote in committee as reflected in the adopted reports and tabled in ATC number 30 of 2021 on pages 150 and 151. And I would also like to thank Al-Jamaa in committee, in the budget committee, for also supporting the third adjustment and the main adjustment when he seconded the respective votes on this matter. Speaker, the DA supports this bill. I thank you.
Thank you, honourable members. Having heard from the respective political parties, order. Thank you, honourable members. Having heard from the respective political parties, just to make sure we record each vote properly, I just now, at this point, are there any objections to vote one? No objections?
No.
Yes, there are. There are.
Yes.
The objection of the ANC is noted. Is there any other political party that wants to register an objection?
Object.
And the vote, the objection of both the ANC and the EFF is noted and it will appear in the order paper.
Speaker, and good.
And good. Thank you. We've noted the good ANC and EFF. The objection will be recorded in the order paper.
And Al-Jamaa. And
Al-Jamaa.
And the Freedom Front.
Thank you. That has also been recorded.
And the
Are there
Freedom
any
Front.
objections to vote two?
No. Point of order.
No objections. Vote two.
Point of order.
What's the point of order?
Point of order, Speaker, could you just clarify in regard to vote one in particular, whether the Freedom Front has supported that or not? Because I heard Honourable
Honourable
support vote one.
Order, honourable members.
I'm just asking if you could clarify whether the Freedom Front is supporting vote one.
The procedure, the presiding officer has put a procedure before the House, and I've requested that those parties who wish to register an objection, then they will speak for themselves. And if they don't, then we proceed. So we're not going to ask the parties if they so wish to object. We assume if they don't speak that they object. They don't object. So in that way, we proceed swiftly and without really soliciting any opinion from the parties. And I now put vote two, Provincial Parliament. Are there any objections?
Object, Speaker.
You must please say your party, honourable member. Here it's EFF.
It's EFF, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Makamba Boja. Any other objection? No objection.
ANC.
ANC, all right. Is the ANC objecting to the provincial parliament's budget? No objection.
Yes, the ANC is objecting.
Thank you,
So
Chief.
how are you going to get paid?
I want to hear Chief with. Thank you, Honorable Leke. The objection of the EFF and that of the ANC has been will be recorded in the order paper. It has been noted accordingly. Thanks to all the political parties. Now let us move to the next one. That is vote 3, provincial treasury. Any objections? No. Thank you. No objections. No objections. Thank you. Then we move. Then we move to vote number 4, community safety. Are there any objections? No.
Yes.
Which party is that? The good party
EFF is
objects.
objecting.
And the EFF objects. No other objections? All right. Thank you very much. We move to vote number 5, education. I now put the question. Any objections?
EFF objects, Speaker.
We hear that honorable member behind you, Honorable Makamba Boy. It seems she wants to say yes.
Objection.
Okay, we know the objection of the EFF. Any other objections, honorable members?
ANC.
Yes, good.
ANC, we record your objection will be recorded, and that as well as that of the EFF. Any other objections?
And the ANC.
Good.
ANC.
I was saying, and good, all right. So the ANC, good, and EFF's objection will be recorded in the order paper. Honorable members, we're moving. I now put vote 6, health. Are there any objections?
No objection, Speaker. Yes, Speaker. No objections.
The EFF's objection will be recorded in the order paper. Are there no other objections?
The ANC, Chair Speaker.
Noted, Honorable Van Vogel. Are there any other objections? None? All right. So that is vote 6 carried. We move to the next one, and I now put vote 7, social development. Are there any objections?
No.
Objection.
No.
Objection?
Objection, Speaker. EFF.
ANC. Objects.
Will be recorded. Good. Is it good also?
Move with the ANC.
All right. We hear the EFF's objection and that of the ANC.
Objection.
And then? Okay, thank you. There's 2 objections, that from EFF and the one from the ANC, both of which will be recorded in the order paper. I now, honorable members, that vote is carried. We now move to vote number 8, and that is human settlements. Are there any objections?
EFF objects.
No.
ANC.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. EFF.
Yes.
Objection.
And the ANC.
And the African National Congress has been recorded. Both the EFF and the ANC has been recorded. The vote is carried. Your objection will be recorded in the order paper. I now, honorable members, move to vote number 9, environmental affairs and development planning. Are there any objections?
Freedom Front object. We don't
Objects.
support that vote.
Speaker.
ANC objects.
EFF objects.
All right. We only want to hear the name object. No debate now. We're done with the debate. So the environmental affairs EFF objects. Are there any other objections?
ANC.
Thank you. And
Freedom
any other
Front.
FF
Freedom
plus?
Front.
Baie
FF
dankie,
plus.
Akbare. That is both the EFF, ANC, and FF plus objection will be recorded in the order paper. The vote is carried. Now, I now put vote number 10, transport and public works. Are there any objections, honorable members?
No objection. No objection.
No objections. EFF's objection?
ANC.
ANC's objection? That's 2 objections, which both the EFF and the ANC's objection will be recorded in the order paper. and the vote is carried. And then I now move to vote number 11. Are there any objections? Agriculture.
ANC.
EFF objects.
No objections.
Speaker.
No objections. The ANC objects.
ANC objects.
Honorable, it's.
I want to eat, so I don't object.
There should be no objection, Speaker. Food security.
Honorable Fritz, I've got the chief whip here. I look her in the eye and then she tells me when she objects on behalf of the DA. But we're here if you want to have a different vote there.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Fritz. Honorable members, I hear the EFF. Is there any other objection?
Is it still agriculture?
No.
Agriculture, yes.
Yes, ANC objects.
ANC and EFF, both of which will be recorded in the order paper. We now move. The vote is carried. Are there any objections to vote 11?
No.
To vote 12, and that is vote 12, and that is economic development and tourism. Actually, it's not this. It's economic opportunities and tourism.
EFF objects, Speaker.
No objections. EFF?
And the ANC.
And the ANC, both of which the objections will be recorded in the order paper. Honorable members, I now move, the vote is carried. I now move to vote number 13, Cultural Affairs and Sport. Are there any objections?
ANC objects, Speaker.
EFF vote is now recorded against. Are there any other objections?
ANC objects, Speaker.
And the ANC's vote against is also recorded in the order paper. It will be recorded as such. The vote is carried. I now move to local government, vote number 14. Any objections?
EFF objects, Speaker.
The objection of the EFF is recorded. Are there any other objections?
The ANC objects.
The ANC's objection is also recorded as such, both of which will be recorded in the order paper. So the vote is now carried. Honorable members, that concludes the decision on the votes, and all of which have been recorded as per the wishes of the political parties. I now put the schedule to the bill before the House. Any objections? Remember, the schedule is just the schedule. Are there any objections? I'm sure there's no objections.
No objection.
Thank you, no objections. Thank you. I now put clauses 1 to 3 of the bill. Are there no objections? Agreed to. Honourable members, I now put the short title. Any objections to the short title? No objections. Agreed to. Andrew Murray, your mic is on. Please, IT, help me here. Switch off all the mics when I'm speaking. All of them.
What?
The secretary will read the 8th order.
Finalization of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B4 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Speaker. I move that the Western Cape Appropriations Bill, Bill 4 of 2021, including the clauses and the short title, be finalized.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I'll see there's no speakers list before me. At this stage, are there any objections to the bill finalized?
Objection.
The objection of the ANC is recorded. The objection of the EFF is also recorded, and that will be noted. It will be recorded as such in the order paper. Honorable members, the question is thereby carried. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. The bill will be sent to the Honorable the Premier for assent. Thank you, honorable members. We do have before the House the executive statement by the Honorable the Premier in terms of Rule 146. In terms of Standing Rule 146, the Honorable Premier, Mr. Alan Winde, has been granted no more than 10 minutes to address the House in terms of the executive statement before us. I would like to request the Honorable Premier to take the opportunity and address the House. I recognize you, Honorable Premier.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And can I also thank those members who took part in the debate 2 days ago on this motion of the Honourable Mackenzie. And I think specifically that much was said in that debate, and I want to thank all the members that took part, specifically the members that made really pertinent comments on this specific process. I also want to say that based on the decision of the House, I therefore wish to make the following executive statement. Honourable Speaker and honourable members, in January we received the Public Protector's report detailing her findings into a complaint by member Dugmore that Minister Anton Burdell had breached the Executive Ethics Code. The remedial action which she prescribed in that report is that I submit her report to the Provincial Legislature along with any comments and a report on action taken by me to this House by 5 February this year. I have complied with the prescribed action and in so doing confirmed to that the action taken by me was the issue of a letter of reprimand to Minister Burdell. However, Speaker, there are some important principled concerns with the Public Protector's findings that cannot be ignored, which will have serious repercussions on how every single member of each executive across the country performs his or her executive role going forward. Speaker, let me place the following facts on record. The letter written by Minister Burdell was written on a DA letterhead in his capacity as provincial chairperson of the Democratic Alliance. 2 members of the Democratic Alliance caucus, and in so doing, he did not conceive of his role in that regard being as that of a member of an executive. I must also be crystal clear up front that whilst the Public Protector found otherwise, she did not find that his actions resulted in any personal benefit to Minister Burdell himself, nor was there any aspect of financial or criminal impropriety. And despite the Honourable Dugmore's sensationalist and misleading public claims about this issue, there has been absolutely no finding of any racism nor racist intent in Minister Burdell's actions. Finally, Speaker, it bears repeating that this complaint relates to a letter written nearly 2 years ago. And it took a full year for Honourable Dugmore to file his complaint, and then another year for the Public Protector to investigate, even though the Act stipulates that investigations should be completed within 30 days. It was also only when Mr. Dugmore made public comments about the Western Cape Public Protector's Office and their officer's lack of attendance to the matter that it was taken up by the National Office. In her letter to my office in July 2020, the Public Protector cites the reason for the delay is COVID-19 or the COVID-19 pandemic. Given that the complaint was first lodged on 19 February 2020, before South Africa had even registered its first case of COVID-19, this simply cannot be true. Speaker, the true reason for this delay would appear to be that the complaint nearly 2 years old at the time, was not deemed to be deserving of any urgent application of the well-publicized stretched resources within the Office of the Public Protector, until Mr. Dugmore made it clear that he now wanted an investigation dealt with urgently. The motivation for doing so, I think, is clear. But, Speaker, my biggest concern about this investigation and the report lies in the far-reaching ramifications thereof. Speaker, I think I must say that again. My biggest concern about this investigation and the report lies in the far-reaching ramifications thereof. In correspondence leading up to her findings in the matter, the Public Protector indicates to Minister Bradell that in her view, the code applies to all members of the executive, irrespective of the capacity in which they perform their actions. She even suggests that when a member of the executive is voting at an elective conference of his or her political party, they may still be regarded as acting as a member of the executive. One wonders how that applies to just this last weekend in one political party in this country. Speaker, this is notwithstanding that the Executive Members Ethics Act, under which the code finds validity, determines that the code such as this is only to guide the conduct of executive members when performing their official responsibilities. The underlying principle which forms the basis of the Public Protector's findings in this matter takes the application of the code far past the role of official responsibilities. Indeed, given the dual roles that all South African politicians holding public office play in our constitutional democracy, by taking this view, the Public Protector has assumed for her office a mandatory investigatory role as regards every action of every high-ranking politician who holds executive office. Given its ramifications, we must take this very seriously. Speaker, this therefore affects every MEC and every national minister in the country. Every MEC and every national minister. It is quite curious why, notwithstanding various reprimands by, amongst others, Parliament and President Ramaphosa of various ANC executive members of his cabinet recently, none of the transgressions in question were investigated as breaches of applicable ethics codes by the Office of the Public Protector. Speaker, the answer why, of course, may also be that members of the National Parliament are similarly also unaware of the view taken by the Public Protector as to the extent of the Code of Ethics to every aspect of every action by a member of the National Cabinet too, and hence no such complaint have previously been laid, or should I say, no such complaint up until now. Speaker, given the facts of this matter and the available precedent, I believe that the reprimand I have issued to Minister Bradell is both fair and reasonable. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Honourable members, in terms of Standing Rule 146, subsection 4, political parties will now have the opportunity to respond for up to 3 minutes each. I now recognize the ANC.
Thank you very much. Speaker. Speaker, it's absolutely astounding and beyond belief that the Premier fails to see an obvious conflict of interest. Here you have MEC Bradell, who's the MEC for local government, sending on a DA letterhead a direct instruction to interfere with a constitutional appointment process, when that very chairperson of the DA is also the MEC for local government. This isn't just the appointment of someone in the political office, it is someone who has applied for a job, and what we have here is the MEC who's responsible for oversight of local government then writes a letter as the DA chairperson, but that doesn't change the fact that there's a complete conflict of interest here. So now the so-called seriousness with which the Premier regards this and impacting on everyone else is simply an excuse for his deliberate ignoring of what is obviously the most blatant conflict of interest. We know that the law says there isn't a discretion for the public protector, that when there's a complaint against an MEC, there has to be a response within 30 days, either to ask for more time, but there has to be a response. And our concern as members who went to lay that complaint is that the Western Cape office was taking a particular view, and I've received literally tens of correspondence saying that this Western Cape office has ignored legitimate complaints, and that is why we had to ask for an intervention. None of this, obviously, the Premier has never, ever raised concerns about the Western Cape office, because it's very clear that that particular office has not been investigating issues affecting the city and the province as it should have done. And we know that, and that evidence will still come out. So it's very clear that we are not going to leave this matter here, because let's remove MEC Bradell here, but when the DA actually tries to roll back employment equity, because in this George case, and I note the point that there's no finding of racism here, and that there's no, we never said there was financial impropriety here, but we have clearly, on the facts of this case, the DA saying that a black director who was the best candidate, the most qualified, had been acting in that position, should not be appointed. Now, if the Premier cannot see that as racism, we didn't ask the Public Protector to find on the issue of racism, but if he cannot see that the DA's conduct was actually against employment equity, then it's clear that this is absolutely just a cover-up. And once again, the DA's refusal to acknowledge that by its very conduct of appointments, that it is actually rolling back national legislation, in this case, in regard to employment equity. So from our side, we're asking the Employment Equity Commission to investigate the conduct of the DA in this instance, which clearly was there to discriminate against a better qualified black candidate. Those are the facts of this particular case. And secondly, we're asking the National Minister to investigate every instance where this happened.
I recognize the DA.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I must say it's quite laughable that Honorable Dagmar would say that this is a cover-up of a public protector that the ANC appointed. It is actually quite laughable, and it's an insult to their own public protector. Honorable Speaker, accountability and good governance are the hallmark of the DA-led government. And the way Premier Alan Wynne dealt with this matter related to Emrys Bradell is no different. In the interest of accountability and transparency, we requested that the Premier deliver an executive statement on this matter, and to my dismay, the ANC in this House voted against this motion. I wonder if the honorable members of the ANC understood my motion on Friday was a request for the Premier to address members on the steps taken to address the findings by the Public Protector. We were not voting on the appropriateness of those actions, but rather requesting that the Premier address this House, which you've now done so. So either our colleagues across the aisle, Honorable Speaker, had not read the motion of accountability and or accountability and transparency is taboo to the ANC, which I believe. Honorable Speaker, the difference between the ANC and the DA is chalk and cheese, and the Honorable Dagmar just mentioned it. But I want to tell the Honorable Dagmar, nearly 2 weeks ago, the city of Joburg, the ANC city of Joburg, the biggest metro in the country, voted to appoint permanent political office bearers who were on fixed-term contracts in the office of the mayor, office of the speaker, the chief whip, and MACO members. That is, Honorable Dagmar, what is a disgrace. Honorable Speaker, through you, Honorable Dagmar, would know that it's unheard of that for political appointments in that office to become permanent, but he seems to be okay with it. What is clear from that, Honorable Speaker, a political discussion and a political instruction was done in a political office and given to the administration for the ANC's political benefit. That is a conflict of interest. In essence, the ANC had captured those offices. So if ever is another political party is elected, they will have permanent political appointees who will actively work against them and against the wishes of those who was elected in the new office. Moving forward, Honorable Speaker, the reality is that in all likelihood, all parties, including the ANC, must agree with the Public Protector's report has dangerous, far-reaching consequences. If we take the report to its logical conclusion, any decision, for example, President Ramaphosa makes at an ANC meeting also means he takes the action as the President of the Republic. Hence, we saw the support of the ANC at the National Assembly on the DA motion for a parliamentary inquiry into the Public Protector's fitness to hold office, because they understood actions were reckless and dangerous. The DA welcomes the executive statement with findings and recommendations made by the Honorable Premier, and we consider this matter as accounted for and finalized. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. Honorable members, I now recognize the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. The EFF will not make any comment on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Makamba Poja. I now consider the good. Honorable members.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I think there's 2 points that I wish to make. The first is that it's rather astounding that the Premier and the DA are unable to understand the concept of a conflict of interests. The heart of this matter is a conflict of interest between MEC Bradel's private interest and his public office. And his private interests do not need to be personal interests, they are the interests of the DA. That's where the conflict of interest lies. So no one is suggesting that MEC Bradel benefited personally from this, but his private interest, which conflicts with his official office as MEC for local government, is the interest of the DA. The DA wanted a different Section 56 employee appointed in the municipality of George, and MEC Bradel acted on the DA's interests, and that's how a conflict of interest arises. And there are other examples of this that the Public Protector is currently investigating, and I'm sure that they will come to the same conclusion. The second point I wish to make is that it is wrong, and it happened last week when we had the debate on this, for members of the DA to personalize this in respect of Advocate Mbekwani. The Public Protector's Office is made up of hundreds of investigators all over the country, and this investigation was probably done in George itself. So it is wrong to try and taint the outcome because the Public Protector herself is currently engaged in a hearing in the National Assembly. And finally, if the DA and the Premier believes that this outcome is wrong, then the right thing for them to do is to take it on review in the High Court. And why are they not doing that? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Hera. Honorable members, I now recognize the ACTP. Honorable Christian.
Thank you, Speaker. As I said before, as the ACTP, we say that the reprimand of the Premier, we agree with that. According to us, Minister Bradel done nothing wrong. The ANC must stop to seek sensation in the public. There is no conflict of interest. When a person in his capacity as the chairperson of the DA in a DA office writes to the DA caucus in George, that's how politics works. That is, then we must all be guilty of one or other thing. So I'm saying, Speaker, that what Minister Bradel did was nothing wrong, and the ANC must stop seeking sensation in the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. Honorable members, I now recognize the FF Plus.
Speaker, there's a saying, people in glass houses should not throw stones. I'm reminded of Ace Magashule, former President Zuma and others, and how the ANC has handled their cases. I now want to just warn the DA, don't use the ANC as your mentor in how to deal with disciplinary measures. Don't be a copycat of ANC at national level. You have much to lose if you go down that road. I agree with the Premier in the reprimand, yes, but you have set a dangerous precedent because you are now acting as Premier. It will be interesting to know how Helen Zille will react from a party political point of view because Mr. Bradel acted as chairman of the DA. Will he be so lenient or have this been a decision taken at the DA's Federal Council level? Or is it only the Premier? I don't want to speculate on this, but there's two issues here. Did he, by doing what he did, transgress any rule of the DA in terms of such matters? Or is the DA just simply hiding behind the public protector's decision on this or report on this? I can remember what happened to many other people in the DA, Mayor DeLow and Peter Murray. The DA wasn't very lenient, but perhaps we were a different color. So the punishment is far less this time. That is a dangerous road to go down. It affects a minister of local government in a year when there's going to be a local government election. So it might become an issue again down the road. But for now, I say yes, Premier, that's your decision. You've got to live by it.
Thank you, Honorable Murray. Honorable members, I now recognize Al Jama. Honorable Brankes.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, we are covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Brankes. Honorable members, just for the records, that concludes the executive statement. But it is noteworthy for the honorable members to know when we took decisions in terms of the votes, the honorable chief whips, it's important to have this on record. We had the 41 members that were present in the House, honorable members. The DA had 23 members present. ANC had 12. The EFF had 2. Good Party had 1. African Christian Democratic Party had 1. Freedom Front Plus had 1, and Al Jamal had 1. There were no absent members. That was a full house. I'm impressed. At this point, I would like to thank the Honorable Premier, to thank the leaders of political parties, and of course, all the honorable members for your participation and the quality of debate we've seen and the spirit within which that took place. And of course, to thank the staff members of this parliament, led by the secretary. I must emphasize, I must thank the Deputy Speaker. We've had this 3 days, Deputy Speaker, the 2 days, it's been fine, and the last week, it's been a great experience to see how we could do this, the two of us presiding here. Ordinarily, we call on the acting chairs, and we didn't do it this time. That was a lot of work to do, but thanks for your support, honorable members, because you made our work a lot easier. At this point, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this session. The House is adjourned. Thank you.